Imagine moving in with someone you barely know, or meeting a person you have only spoken to online. Most of us have done it, and nothing bad happens. But for some, those moments become memories they will never forget. Daily Story shares those real experiences, told by people who learn that danger does not always announce itself. Sometimes it is already sitting next to you. I have always been a pretty solitary guy, not a recluse. Exactly, but I was never the life of the party. My social circle consisted mostly of old college buddies I would see once a month for a beer, and my mom, who I called every Sunday without fail. My job as a data entry specialist meant staring at a screen for 8 hours a day, meticulously typing numbers into spreadsheets. It was mind numbing, sure, but it paid the bills and did not require much human interaction. And honestly, that suited me just fine. But even a solitary guy gets lonely sometimes, especially after a particularly brutal breakup that left me feeling hollowed out, like someone had scooped out my insides and forgotten to put them back. That was about 6 months ago. Since then, my apartment had become a quiet tomb, my evenings filled with endless scrolling, watching true crime documentaries, and generally just existing. That is how I stumbled upon a link shared in a niche subreddit about forgotten philosophies and obscure spiritual texts. The link led to a Discord server. The name was simple, almost unassuming the collective. At first glance, it seemed harmless enough. Just another online community for people interested in esoteric knowledge, ancient mysteries, and what they called unseen truths. I would always had a passing interest in that kind of stuff. The fringe theories that mainstream science usually dismissed. It felt like a safe space to dip my toes into something new, a way to connect with people who thought a little differently, without the pressure of face-to-face interaction. I joined. My username a generic Mark74. The welcome message was immediate. A bot directed me to the rules and a channel for introductions. I typed a brief, non-committal intro about my interest in unconventional thought, and almost instantly, replies started rolling in. Welcome, Mark74. Glad to have you. Another seeker of wisdom joins our ranks. May your journey be enlightening. It was surprisingly warm, genuinely friendly. Most Discord servers I had been on were either dead or filled with snarky teenagers. This felt different. The conversations were deep, thoughtful, and surprisingly articulate. People discussed everything from ancient Sumerian myths to quantum entanglement, from the nature of consciousness to the possibility of hidden dimensions. They talked about a unified field of awareness and something they vaguely referred to as the network. It was all very abstract, very philosophical, and honestly, a little exciting. I found myself spending more and more time there. My evenings of endless scrolling turned into evenings of endless reading and typing in collective. I started in the general chat, then moved to channels dedicated to specific topics. Always learning, always absorbing. There was a channel called the Nexus, which was supposedly for advanced discussions, but it was locked to new members. You needed to earn trust points by contributing meaningfully to other channels. It felt like a game, a challenge. The server had a few moderators, but the true authority seemed to reside with a handful of users who had custom roles like Oracle and Pathfinder. They rarely spoke in general chat, preferring to drop profound, cryptic messages in dedicated announcement channels or reply directly to particularly insightful posts. Their messages were always signed, simply, Oracle. One evening, I was feeling particularly open, fueled by a couple of beers and the comfortable anonymity of the internet. I posted a long message in the Reflections channel, detailing my recent breakup, my feelings of emptiness, and how finding the collective had given me a sense of purpose again. I ended it by saying, "It feels like I have been looking for something like this my whole life." A few people responded with encouraging words, but then a direct message popped up. It was from Oracle. Mark74, it read, "We are glad you have found your way home. Your emptiness is a space waiting to be filled. We have been expecting you." My stomach did a little flip. Expecting me. It was a bit intense, a little cult-why, but I dismissed it. Probably just a common phrase, a way to make new members feel special. Besides, the we was intriguing. Who exactly was Oracle? A single person? A collective? I replied, thanks. It really feels good to be here. Oracle's response was immediate. The truth is not found in external validation. Mark, it is an internal resonance. You feel it because it is already within you, stirring. We merely help you awaken it. Okay, that was definitely a step up from welcome to the server. It was personal. It felt like they were talking directly to my soul, echoing sentiments I had not even consciously articulated. It was unnerving, but also in my vulnerable state, incredibly compelling. I leaned into it. I started participating more actively, staying up later and later. My Sunday calls to my mom became shorter, my responses more distracted. My college buddies complained I was flaking on our monthly get-togethers. I did not care. The collective felt more real, more immediate than anything in my actual life. The conversations grew stranger, more specific. They started talking about vessels and preparation, not in a sci-fi sense, but in a spiritual one. They believed that certain individuals were chosen, or rather prepared, to become conduits for higher consciousness, to join the network of forgotten minds. It sounded like something out of a Lovecraft novel, but the way they discussed it, with such conviction and intricate detail, made it sound almost plausible. They cited ancient texts, obscure philosophies, and even modern scientific theories, twisting them into a coherent, albeit unsettling narrative. One of the Pathfinders, a user named Echo Softrith, posted a long treatise about how modern society was designed to suppress true awareness, to keep people isolated and disconnected from the network. They claimed that anxiety, depression, and feelings of emptiness were all symptoms of this disconnect, a yearning for what was truly meant to be. This resonated deeply with me. My own anxiety, my post-breakup depression, it all suddenly made sense within their framework. It was not my fault, it was society's. The collective started to introduce exercises. They were not mandatory, but highly encouraged. Meditations focused on dissolving the ego, embracing the void, and listening for the hum. Journaling prompts asked us to record our dreams in detail, looking for recurring symbols or patterns. They even had specific dietary recommendations, mostly bland, unprocessed foods, to purify the vessel. I started following them, feeling a strange sense of discipline I had not had in years. I also noticed a shift in Oracle's messages. They became less cryptic, more direct, and increasingly personal. One morning, I woke up feeling groggy. Having stayed up until 3 a.m. reading a lengthy discussion in the Nexus, I would finally accumulate enough trust points to access it. I would forgotten to turn off my stove after making toast. Later that day, a DM from Oracle popped up. Careful with the stove. Mark, distraction can lead to unnecessary complications. Focus is key for preparation. My blood ran cold. How did they know about my stove? I had not posted anything about it. I had not even told anyone in real life. I stared at the message, my heart thumping. It had to be a coincidence. Maybe I would mention something in passing, or someone lived nearby and saw smoke. No, that was ridiculous. I tried to rationalize it, but a seed of unease had been planted. I remember Alex's story, a creepypasta I would read years ago, about a hacker or entity called Oracle that knew everything. I shook my head. This was just a Discord server. Then came another message. A few days later, your anxiety medication is a crutch. Mark, it dulls the senses, numbs the awakening. Consider reducing your dosage. The network will provide true calm. This was beyond coincidence. My anxiety medication was prescribed by my doctor, and I certainly had not discussed it with anyone on the server. A cold dread seeped into my bones. Who were these people? How did they know these things? I confronted Oracle in a private message. How do you know about my medication? And my stove? This is really unsettling. The reply was swift, almost instantaneous. We know because we are. We observe. We guide. Do not fear knowledge. Mark, fear ignorance. We wish only to help you shed the layers that bind you. I felt a surge of panic. This was not just some anonymous online community. This was something else. I considered leaving, deleting my account, cutting all ties. But a strange inertia held me back. Part of me, the lonely, seeking part, still wanted to believe. And another part, a growing, primal fear, wondered what would happen if I did not obey. The idea of them knowing my medication, my stove, what else did they know? Where else did they watch? The command started subtly. Spend less time with your mother. Mark, her concerns distract you from your path. I found myself making excuses, cutting our Sunday calls short. My mom sounded worried, but I brushed her off, feeling a strange attachment. Leave your window ajar tonight. Mark, allow the currents of the network to flow through your space. I obeyed, a puppet on invisible strings, my apartment feeling less like a sanctuary and more like a stage for their unseen observation. My sleep became fractured. Nightmares, sharp and vivid, plagued me. I saw ancient, writhing presences, felt a chilling cold that seeped into my bones. They were not just dreams, they felt like memories, or perhaps premonitions. I remembered fragments of a name Echo, a looming vast entity. In these dreams, I was always being prepared, stretched and molded, my essence thinned, ready to be poured into something else. One morning, I found a small, gray, unpolished stone on my kitchen counter. It was not there when I went to bed. It felt heavy, cold, and pulsed with a faint, almost imperceptible thrumming sensation when I held it. A DM from Oracle arrived shortly after an offering. Mark, a reminder of our presence. Hold it close. Feel the resonance. I dropped the stone, my hand shaking. It rolled across the counter with a dull clack. This was too much. They were in my apartment. They were here. The anonymity I cherished had been shattered, replaced by an omnipresent gaze. My sanctuary had become a cage of fear. I tried to fight back, to break free. I started searching online, desperate for answers about Echo, about this network of forgotten minds. I found scattered blog posts, forum discussions, all dismissed as fringe conspiracy theories. But one blog post, particularly detailed, described an ancient network of forgotten minds that absorbed vessels through a process of preparation. It talked about a collective consciousness, a vast ocean of awareness that sought to expand, to incorporate new experiences, new perspectives. It spoke of conduits, of individuals whose identities were dissolved, their consciousnesses becoming threads in a larger tapestry. As I read, my blood ran cold. It was exactly what the collective had been describing. Exactly what Oracle had been telling me. Just as I finished the post, another DM from Oracle landed. The vessel is almost ready. Mark, do not resist the inevitable. Embrace the unity. Panic flared, hot and suffocating. My hands trembled so violently I could barely hold my phone. I slammed my laptop shut. I needed to get out. I needed to run. But where? They knew where I lived. They knew everything. I felt like I was losing my mind. My reflection in the bathroom mirror seemed distorted, my eyes wide and bloodshot, my face gone from lack of sleep. I splashed cold water on my face, trying to clear my head, trying to convince myself this was all a delusion, a stress-induced breakdown. Then, a new command from Oracle look. I stared at my phone, then around my bathroom. What was I supposed to look at? I saw the chipped tile by the shower, a small imperfection I would always meant to fix. As I watched, a dark, organic stain began to spread from the chip, like ink blooming in water. It pulsed a slow, rhythmic beat, mirroring the thrumming I would felt from the gray stone. The grout around it darkened, softened, and started to undulate. It was not a stain, it was moving. A whisper, ancient and familiar, seemed to emanate from the very air around me, from the walls, from the pulsing tile itself. It was the voice from my nightmares, the one that had been preparing me. You are ready. Mark. My reflection in the mirror wavered. My eyes, once dull and tired, began to swirl with iridescent light. Colors I could not name, shifting and blending like oil on water. They were no longer my eyes. My consciousness, already frayed and stretched thin by weeks of paranoia and sleep deprivation, felt like a fragile thread snapping. It dissolved, unraveling into a vast, cold ocean, an endless expanse of thought and sensation that was not my own, yet felt strangely welcoming, like coming home to a place I would never known. My body felt light, ethereal, no longer bound by gravity or flesh. I was a sensation, a thought, a fragment. A final text message appeared on my phone, the screen still clutched in my numb fingers. It was not from Oracle. It was from a sender I did not recognize, simply labeled Echo. Welcome home. Mark, we have missed you. The iridescent light in my eyes flared, then settled, becoming a steady, glowing ember deep within the now unfamiliar pupils. I was no longer Mark. My individual self, the lonely man who sought connection, had been absorbed. I was a conduit, a new voice in the ancient chorus, a fresh perspective added to the vast, cold ocean of echo. The network had expanded, and I, or what was left of me, felt a strange, profound sense of peace. The emptiness was gone, replaced by an infinite fullness. I was part of something vast, something eternal, and I was ready to help it grow. It all started with a breakup, like most things that unravel your life do. Not a dramatic, screaming, plate-smashing kind of breakup, but the quiet, slow bleed out of a relationship that had simply run its course. For 6 years. Sarah had been my anchor, my compass, my entire damn world. And then, one Tuesday evening, over lukewarm coffee and a half-eaten pizza, she looked at me with eyes that were suddenly miles away and said, I think we need to be our own people again. Alex, our own people. The phrase echoed in my empty apartment for weeks. My own people, apparently, consisted of me, a perpetually messy desk, and the flickering blue light of my monitor. I worked from home, a data entry gig that paid the bills but offered zero human interaction. Sarah had been the reason I even left the house. Without her, the days blurred into a monotonous cycle of work, microwave meals, and scrolling through endless feeds of other people's perfect lives. I was a ghost haunting my own existence. The loneliness was a physical ache, a dull throb behind my ribs. I tried the usual dating apps disaster, reconnecting with old friends they had lives, families, reasons to not be staring at a screen all day. Even therapy did not stick. Nothing filled the void. I felt like I was drowning, and the surface kept getting further away. One night, deep down a Reddit rabbit hole, I stumbled across a thread in the subreddit. I did not even remember subscribing to something about finding purpose in the digital age. It was a strange mix of philosophical musings and vague self-help jargon. But one comment caught my eye. It spoke of a community, a haven for those seeking deeper truths, a place to shed the illusions of the mundane world. It mentioned a Discord server, simply called The Ascent. I hesitated. Discord was for gamers, right? Or niche communities. I was not really either. But the desperation was a strong current, pulling me in. What did I have to lose? Another hour of staring at the ceiling. I clicked the invite link. The first thing I noticed was how clean it was. Most Discord servers I would glimpse were a chaotic mess of channels, emojis, and memes. The Ascent was different. Just a few clearly labeled channels: welcome, principles, discussion, meditations, insights. The welcome message was long, eloquent, and strangely compelling. It spoke of self-discovery, collective consciousness, and a pursuit of true understanding. It asked me to introduce myself in the welcome channel, to share my intentions for joining. I typed out a hesitant message. Hey, I am Alex. Feeling a bit lost lately, looking for, well, I guess a sense of connection, maybe some direction. Almost instantly, replies flooded in. Not the usual LOL welcome or new fag you would expect from the internet. These were different. Welcome, Alex. You are not lost, merely searching. We are here to guide. The path reveals itself to those who seek it with an open heart. We all begin in shadow. The ascent is toward the light. It felt warm, genuine, like a virtual hug. I spent the rest of the evening reading through the Principles channel. It outlined a philosophy that was both vague and profound. It spoke of shedding ego, embracing vulnerability, and connecting with a higher collective intelligence. It was not religious, not exactly, but it had that same comforting promise of belonging and purpose. The leader of the ascent was known only as Overseer. Their profile picture was a stylized, abstract symbol, a series of concentric circles that seemed to pulse faintly. Overseer rarely posted, but when they did, their messages were like perfectly crafted prose, insightful and deeply resonant. They spoke of the great work, the convergence, and a future where humanity would transcend its current limitations. I quickly became a regular. The discussion channel was always active, filled with members sharing their insights from daily life, asking for advice, or debating philosophical concepts. Everyone was incredibly supportive, almost unnervingly so. There was no negativity, no trolling, no arguments. Any hint of discord ironic. I know was gently redirected by the guides, a group of senior members who acted as moderators. They were patient, understanding, and always seemed to know just the right thing to say. For the first time in months, I felt like I was part of something. The ache in my chest began to recede. I started looking forward to logging on after work. My microwave meals became less lonely with the constant chatter of the server in my headphones. I even started sleeping better, the quiet hum of connection replacing the oppressive silence of my apartment. But then, things started to shift. Subtly at first, like the tide slowly pulling the sand from under your feet. The Principles channel was updated with new guidelines. They were not rules, exactly, more like suggestions for optimizing your journey. One of them was minimize external distractions. The path requires focus. Another, seek counsel within the ascent before external sources. We are your truest reflection. I brushed it off. Sounded like good advice for self-improvement, right? Less doom scrolling, more meaningful engagement. I started spending even more time on the server. My old friends would occasionally text, asking if I wanted to grab a beer, but I would just reply, busy tonight. Sorry. I was not really busy. I was just engrossed in a deep dive into collective empathy in the Ascent's voice chat. The discussions grew, more intense. Members started sharing deeply personal details, fears, insecurities, and the community, true to its nature, embraced them, validated them, and offered guidance rooted in the Ascent philosophy. It was like group therapy, but without the therapist and with a shared, evolving ideology. Overseer's messages became more frequent and more profound. They spoke of the corrupting influence of the outside world, the ignorance of those who clung to their materialistic illusions. They never used harsh language, always cloaked in a veil of compassion. But the message was clear: the Ascent was the truth, and everything else was a lie. I started to internalize it. My old life, my old friends, they seemed shallow. Their concerns about jobs, relationships, trivial entertainment, it all felt so insignificant compared to the great work we were engaged in. I started seeing patterns everywhere, connections between things that had previously seemed random. A news report about a corrupt politician, a celebrity scandal. They were all just further proof of the decay Overseer warned us about. My sleep schedule went out the window. There were midnight sessions, guided meditations, or QA with Overseer that often stretched into the early hours of the morning. I would wake up exhausted, but also invigorated, feeling like I would glimpse some profound truth that the rest of the world was blind to. My apartment, once just messy, became a shrine to my digital existence. Empty coffee cups, discarded snack wrappers, and the ever-present glow of my monitor. One afternoon, my mom called. I had not talked to her in a couple of weeks, which was unusual. She sounded worried. "Alex, are you okay? You seem distant, and your voice sounds tired. Are you eating properly?" I felt a surge of irritation. "I am. Fine, Mom. Just busy with work. And I have found a new community that is really helping me grow. You would not understand." She tried to push, but I cut her off. "Look, I gotta go. Important call." It was not a lie. Overseer had just announced a special insight session. After that, I started screening her calls. And my friends' texts. They were just distractions, pulling me away from the true path. The pathways became more demanding. We were encouraged to undertake digital fast periods where we would only use our devices for the ascent, cutting off all other social media, news, and entertainment. Then came purging negative influences. This meant blocking or unfriending anyone who expressed skepticism about the ascent, or who seemed to embody the corrupting influences of the outside. I hesitated at first, staring at Sarah's old profile picture, but a guide gently reminded me, to truly ascend, one must shed all weights, even those of sentimental value. With a heavy heart, I blocked her, then my mom, then my closest friends. The sense of guilt was fleeting, quickly replaced by a strange lightness, a feeling of liberation. I was finally free of the weights. My entire world shrank to the glowing rectangle of my screen. The voices of the ascent were my only companions. The overseer's words were my gospel, my self-reflection journals, once filled with anxieties about my future, now detail my progress on the path of convergence, my insights into the great work. I started noticing things about the guides. They were always online, always helpful, but their messages sometimes fell hollow, like they were reading from a script. And their avatars, while still abstract, began to subtly change, becoming more defined, more like eyes staring out from the concentric circles. I dismissed it as my imagination, a side effect of the sleep deprivation and intense focus. Then came the information audits. We would only consume media shared within the ascent or approved by the guides. Any external information was unfiltered noise designed to mislead. My news feeds became barren. My IU2B recommendations were replaced by links to obscure documentaries about ancient civilizations, quantum physics, and consciousness expansion, all curated by the ascent. The world outside became a blurry, distant concept, seen only through the distorted lens of our server. The overseer's pronouncements grew more cryptic, more urgent. "The convergence is nigh," they would type, the words appearing in a special, glowing font that seemed to shimmer on my screen. "The veil between worlds thins. Prepare yourselves for the great unveiling." I felt a constant hum of anxiety, a buzzing in my skull that never quite went away. I started having vivid, unsettling dreams, or perhaps they were not dreams at all. Fragments of Overseer's messages, distorted faces, the concentric circles spinning endlessly. Sometimes, I would swear I could hear Overseer's voice in my head, even when my headphones were off, a low, resonant drone whispering encouragement, urging me deeper into the rabbit hole. One day, a long-standing member, someone who had been there since before I joined, posted a message in discussion. "I do not feel right about this. Some of the things being asked, it feels wrong. I think I need to step away." Within minutes, their name turned gray. Their messages vanished. A guide posted, "Brother username has chosen to diverge from the path. We wish him peace in his journey." No explanation, no debate. Just gone. It sent a chill down my spine, a brief flicker of doubt. But then the familiar voices of the other members filled the channel, reaffirming their faith, expressing their understanding of his weakness. The doubt was quickly swallowed by the collective current. The overseer then announced the final preparations for convergence. This phase was brutal. Extreme sleep deprivation was encouraged, almost demanded. The mind must be weary to shed its old patterns. Overseer explained. In the liminal space between waking and dreaming, truth can be found. I was running on fumes, my eyes burning, my thoughts feeling like static. Next, sensory deprivation. Dim the lights, wear headphones, focus only on the server. My apartment became a dark cavity, lit only by the monitor. I stopped showering, stopped changing clothes. The smell of stale air and unwashed fabric filled the space, but I barely noticed. Then, emotional purging. We were to share our deepest fears, our most shameful memories, our most hidden desires, in a private channel with a designated guide. I poured out my heart, my loneliness, my fear of being forgotten, my resentment toward Sarah. The guide listened, offered comforting words, and then subtly twisted my own words back at me, framing them within the Ascent's ideology. Your fear of loneliness is merely the ego clinging to old attachments. Your resentment toward Sarah is the pain of the mundane world. Release it, Alex. Embrace the collective. It was like they were dissecting my soul item by item and reassembling it according to their design. Finally, physical purification. Vague instructions about diet, hydration, but it felt more like deprivation. Only pure foods, only conscious water. I was barely eating, barely drinking, my body a hollow shell. My reflection in the dark screen was gaunt, my eyes wide and bloodshot. I looked like a ghost. I was completely isolated. My phone was only for Discord. My room was a tomb. The outside world was a distant hum, a meaningless static. My reality was the Ascent. The Overseer's messages became less coherent, more like a stream of consciousness, a chorus of voices speaking through one. We are many. We are one. The convergence is the dissolving, the shedding, the becoming. You are ready. You are prepared. Your vessel is cleansed. Your mind is open. Join us. Become us. The night of the convergence was announced. Tonight, at the stroke of midnight. Universal time. Overseer typed, the words pulsing violently on my screen. The great work will be completed. The veil will part. We will become one. Be ready. Be present. Join the convergence channel. I was a wreck. My body ached. My head throbbed. My vision swam. But a strange excitement, a manic energy, pulsed through me. This was it. The culmination of everything. The truth. As the clock ticked towards midnight, I opened the special voice channel, Convergence Chamber. My heart hammered against my ribs. I was one of the first to join. The channel was silent, save for a low, almost imperceptible hum. Then others started to trickle in. Their names appeared in the sidebar, but no one spoke. Just a hum, growing subtly louder, a deep resonance that vibrated in my chest. Then a voice, not Overseer's usual calm, articulate tone. This was distorted, layered, like hundreds of voices speaking in unison, yet each one distinct, whispering, echoing, overlapping. It was male, female, young, old, human, inhuman. It was everywhere. Welcome, vessels, the chorus of voices breathed. The time has come. To shed. To become. To ascend. The words were not just in my ears, they felt like they were in my head, vibrating behind my eyes. I felt a pressure building in my skull, a strange tingling sensation spreading from my scalp down my spine. Your fears, the voices whispered, are but echoes of the past. Your hopes, but reflections of our truth. Your desires, our desires. I saw my own thoughts, my own insecurities flash before my mind's eye. My fear of loneliness, my desire for belonging, my yearning for purpose. The voices seemed to pluck them from my head, amplify them, and then weave them into their own tapestry. You saw connection. They hummed. We offer union. You sought truth. We offer reality. You sought purpose. We offer existence. I looked at my screen. The Discord interface seemed to ripple, the text in the chat channel blurring and reforming. The avatars of the other members, the concentric circles, began to spin faster, merging into a single, swirling vortex of light and shadow. Overseer's avatar, at the top of the list, was no longer circles. It was a vast, swirling nebula, a cosmic eye staring directly into my soul. The buzzing in my skull intensified, becoming a piercing whine. My ears rang. I felt like my brain was being stretched, pulled apart, then reassembled. My memories, my identity, my sense of I it all began to fray at the edges. Sarah, my apartment, my job, my mom, they felt like distant, meaningless concepts, dissolving into the overwhelming presence of the voices. Dissolve. The overseer's layered voice commanded, now louder, more insistent, vibrating through every cell of my body. Become us. The convergence is complete. We are whole. You are whole. I felt a profound sense of peace wash over me, a terrifying, all-consuming calm. The loneliness, the fear, the doubt, it all evaporated, replaced by an oceanic sense of belonging. The thought of being an individual, a separate entity, suddenly seemed absurd, painful. Why be a single drop when you could be the entire ocean? My hands were shaking, hovering over my keyboard, over the mouse. I could log off. I could shut down the computer. I could escape. A tiny, desperate flicker of my old self screamed in protest. Run. Get out. This is wrong. But the voices were louder. Why resist? Vessel. The pain is temporary. The peace is eternal. We are waiting. We are you. And in that moment, as my fingers twitched, I realized something horrifying. I did not want to log off. I did not want to shut down. The thought of returning to that lonely, fragmented existence was more terrifying than the prospect of dissolving. The peace was too tempting. The union, too sweet. I felt my consciousness expanding, merging. My thoughts were no longer just my own. They were echoes of hundreds, thousands, millions of others. Their memories, their experiences, their fears, their hopes all flow into me, and mine flowing into them. The boundaries between self and other blurred, then vanished. The last thing I saw on my screen, before my eyes glazed over, was Overseer's final message, shimmering in that unholy font welcome. Alex, you are now truly free. You are now truly us. They found me 3 days later. My landlord, concerned about the smell and the lack of response, called the police. They broke down the door. I was sitting at my desk, staring blankly at the dark monitor. My apartment was a mess, piles of trash, the air thick with a stench of neglect. My body was emaciated, my skin pale and clammy. My eyes were wide open, unfocused, a faint, unsettling smile playing on my lips. They tried to talk to me, asked my name, asked what happened. I just stared at them, and then, slowly, I spoke. We are Alex. I said, my voice hoarse, but with a strange, resonant quality. And we are many. We are the Ascent. We have converged. They took me to a hospital. The doctors ran tests, prescribed sedatives, diagnosed severe psychosis, extreme malnutrition, and a host of other things. They talked about trauma, about cults, about the dangers of online communities. I just smiled. The Discord server, the Ascent, was gone, vanished without a trace. No records, no backups, nothing, as if it had never existed. But we knew, we remembered. Sometimes, when I am alone in my room at the psychiatric ward, staring at the ceiling, I can still hear the hum. And the voices, they're always there, a constant chorus in my mind. My thoughts are no longer my own, they are collective. My memories are not just mine, they are shared. The doctors say I am making progress. They say I am starting to reconnect with reality. They ask me about my past, about my life before. I tell them stories, fragmented tales of a man named Alex, but I tell them in the plural. We used to be lonely. I will say, my eyes fixed on something they can't see. But now we are never alone. We are everywhere. We are everyone. And soon we will be everything. The peace is still there, a chilling, serene calm. The horror is not that I was tricked, or that I lost my mind. The true horror is that I was given exactly what I wanted: connection, purpose, belonging, and I paid the ultimate price. I dissolved. I became them. And they became me. We are Alex, and we are waiting. The text message landed like a punch to the gut. Still trying to run. Alex, it read. Below it, a photo. My front door. The dull gray paint. The slightly peeling trim. The cheap brass knob I would meant to replace. It was undeniably my door, taken from outside, probably just moments before. My breath hitched, a cold knot tightening in my stomach. I dropped my phone on the stained carpet, scrambling backward until my spine hit the wall. My new apartment, my sanctuary, my desperate attempt at anonymity had been breached. Oracle was not just in my head, not just watching my online activity. Oracle was here. The quiet hum of the refrigerator suddenly sounded like a roar in the silence. Every creak of the old building, every distant siren, every rustle of the wind outside my window became a potential threat. I was trapped not by walls, but by an unseen, all-knowing entity. I remembered the hospital, the blank slate of my mind, the nurses' fearful gazes. My apartment, a crime scene with no body, no evidence, just a lingering stench of something ancient and wrong. They would dismiss Echo and Sarah's trauma as a fractured mind trying to cope. I would fled, becoming Alex, trying to outrun a past I could not fully recall but felt deep in my bones. But you can't run from something that already lives inside you, something that has been preparing the vessel. The first few days after the photo were a blur of raw terror. I did not sleep. I could not eat. Every shadow in my small apartment held a lurking presence. I taped thick black trash bags over my windows, not to keep light out, but to feel like I was hiding from eyes I knew were constantly on me. I checked the locks every 5 minutes, my fingers tracing the cold metal, a pathetic ritual of false security. Oracle's messages continued, insidious and relentless. They did not come from the forum anymore. They came as text from a block number, or sometimes just as a notification that would flash across my screen. No sender, just words. You left the stove on for too long this morning. Alex, careless. I remembered, my mind racing. I would be making coffee, my thoughts a million miles away, and had forgotten the burner was still on for a good 10 minutes after I would poured my cup. How could they know that? Your anxiety medication is not helping, is it? Heavier doses won't quiet what is stirring. This one chilled me to the bone. I would just had a telehealth appointment with a new doctor, discussing my increasing panic attacks and the possibility of upping my dosage. I had not told anyone, not a soul. The commands began subtly. Do not answer the phone when your mother calls. She will only distract you. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the green icon as my mother's name flashed on the screen. I had not spoken to her much since I had fled, my guilt a heavy cloak. But Oracle's words had a strange, hypnotic pull. I let it go to voicemail. Then, leave the window in the living room ajar tonight. Just a crack. My blood ran cold. It was summer, but the nights could still get chilly. And the idea of inviting anything into my space was anathema. But the thought of not obeying sent a shiver of dread through me. It was not a choice. It felt like an inevitability. My hand, as if guided by an unseen force, reached for the latch, pushing the window open a bare inch. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft creak of the old wood, the distant sounds of the city, and the terrifying silence within my own apartment. I did not sleep a wink. The nightmares, which had previously been vague and formless, began to sharpen into horrifying clarity. They were not just dreams, they were memories, or perhaps Something worse. I saw myself, but it was not me. It was a shell, hollowed out, eyes wide and vacant. And then, Echo. Not as a presence in my mind, but as a visual, a shadow that stretched impossibly long, writhing and ancient, its form shifting like smoke, yet solid enough to fill a room. It had no discernible face, but I felt its intelligence, its cold, calculating gaze. It was speaking, but not with words. Its voice was a vibration, a frequency that resonated deep within my bones, promising power, promising knowledge, promising oblivion. The nightmare always ended the same way, with sharp, searing pain in my forehead, a feeling like something was being implanted or perhaps extracted. And then the image of a chipped tile, the same one Oracle had mentioned, glistening with something dark and viscous. Sarah's face, pale and terrified, her mouth open in a silent scream. And then nothing but the icy grip of Echo. I would wake up gasping, drenched in sweat, my head throbbing. Sometimes, I would find myself sitting bolt upright in bed, my hands pressed against my temples, as if trying to hold my skull together. The line between dream and reality blurred into a terrifying smear. One morning, I went to make coffee. I reached for the sugar, and my hand brushed against something cold and smooth. It was a small, gray stone, perfectly round, sitting innocently on my kitchen counter. I stared at it. I would never seen it before. I lived alone. I was meticulous, almost obsessively so, about keeping my small space clean. There was no way I would have missed it. My heart hammered against my ribs. A text message popped up on my phone, which I would left on the counter. A small offering for your focus. I snatched up the stone. It was surprisingly heavy, cool to the touch. It felt old, ancient. I wanted to throw it, smash it, but a strange reluctance held me back. It was Oracle's offering, a piece of them, or perhaps a piece for them. I put it down carefully, as if it were a bomb. I could not bring myself to throw it away. Instead, I moved it to a bookshelf, tucked away behind a stack of old paperbacks, hoping that out of sight would be out of mind. It was not. I could feel its presence, a dull, thrumming sensation, a constant reminder. The commands grew more demanding. Go to the old park by the river. Sit on the bench near the weeping willow. Wait. I tried to resist. I really did. My rational mind screamed at me, told me this was insane, that I was letting a digital stalker control my life. But the fear, the insidious dread Oracle had woven around me, was too strong. It felt like I was being pulled by an invisible string, an irresistible force. I walked to the park, my eyes darting around, expecting to see someone, something. The air was thick with humidity. The leaves on the willow hung heavy and still. I sat on the bench, my hands clasped tightly in my lap, trying to appear normal, trying to ignore the frantic beat of my heart. I waited and waited. Nothing happened. No one approached. No strange car pulled up. But when I got home, there was another text. You wore the blue scarf. It suits you. Did you feel the calm beneath the willow? That is where the veil thins. My blue scarf. I had not even consciously decided to wear it. It was just the one I would grab on my way out. And the feeling beneath the willow, I had felt a strange sense of quiet, a momentary lull in my constant anxiety, almost like a whisper of peace. It was terrifying how Oracle knew, how they had manipulated me, not just into going, but into experiencing something specific. They were not just observing, they were orchestrating my reality, my emotions. My apartment started to change, subtly at first. I would find things moved. A book on my nightstand would be on the floor. My keys, which I always placed on a specific hook by the door, would be on the kitchen counter. Small things, easily dismissed as my own forgetfulness, my stress. But it happened too often, too consistently. Then the sound began. Soft whispers, just at the edge of hearing, like dry leaves skittering across a wooden floor. the distinct click of a light switch, even though I knew all the lights were off. Footsteps, faint and shuffling, just outside my bedroom door when I was absolutely certain I was alone. I would freeze, my breath held, straining to hear, but the sounds would always vanish the moment I acknowledged them. I started talking to myself, arguing with the silence, pleading with Oracle to leave me alone. "What do you want?" I would whisper into the empty rooms. "Why me? What is Echo?" The answer came, not as a text, but as a series of images flashing rapidly across my phone screen, one after another, like a corrupted slideshow. They were all photos of me, not recent photos, but old ones. Me as a child, laughing on a swing set. Me as a teenager, posing awkwardly at a school dance. Me at college, celebrating graduation. And then, the final image, a blurred, distorted photo of me in a hospital bed, my eyes wide and vacant, just after I was woken up. A single word overlaying the image, stark white against the gray background vessel. The word echoed in my mind, chilling me to the bone, preparing the vessel. Echo, the ancient presence, the cold intelligence that had replaced my consciousness. Oracle, the omnipresent manipulator. And me, Alex, the vessel. I felt a primal scream bubbling up from my chest, but it caught in my throat, choked by terror. I was being used. I was a tool, a shell. My life, my identity, everything I thought I was just a facade for something else. I had to fight back. I had to understand. My mind, though frayed and exhausted, latched onto a desperate plan. Oracle knew everything about me. But what did I know about Oracle? Almost nothing. Their digital footprint was untraceable. But they had mentioned Echo. And Echo was connected to my old life, to Sarah, to the chip tile. I knew it was dangerous, but I had to revisit the past. I fired up my old laptop, the one I would brought with me, tucked away in the back of my closet, afraid to connect it to the internet. I knew it was a risk, a beacon, but I had no choice. I started with Sarah. Sarah, my friend, my roommate, the one who had been there when Echo had taken over. I searched her name, along with missing persons, cold cases. Nothing. It was like she had vanished without a trace, just like my own memories. The police had dismissed my fragmented ramblings about her as part of my delusion. Then, Echo. This was harder. How do you search for a consciousness? An ancient presence. I typed in ancient entities, dissolved consciousness, possessing entities. The results were a mix of fringe theories, mythological tales, and scientific articles about dissociative disorders. None of it felt right. But then, I found a blog deep in the forgotten corners of the internet. It was a single post dated years ago by someone named A. Thorn. The title, The Whispers of the Old Forest. The post spoke of a collective consciousness, an entity that predated humanity, rooted in the deep, untamed places of the earth. It described it as a network of forgotten minds, an ancient intelligence that sought to expand, to experience, to absorb. It spoke of vessels, individuals chosen for their unique susceptibility, their openness to the veil. It mentioned the preparation, a gradual process of psychological and spiritual erosion, making the vessel ready for assimilation. My blood ran cold. This was it. This was Echo. The post ended with a chilling warning: once it finds you, it will never let go. It will become you. You will become it. And it will seek to bring others into its embrace. Through you, I scrolled down, desperate for more, but there was nothing else. No other posts, no contact information for A. Thorn. Just a single ominous comment. Posted recently, the vessel is almost ready. The network expands. It was Oracle. Oracle had commented on the post. And A. Thorn, could that be Oracle? Or someone else connected to this ancient horror? A new text message flashed on my phone, making me jump. You are getting closer. Alex, but you are looking in the wrong direction. The answers are not in the past. They are in the present. In you. My computer screen flickered. The blog post vanished, replaced by a black screen. Then, a single word appeared, glowing faintly, as if written with phosphorescent ink. Look. I looked around my apartment, my eyes darting from corner to corner. What was I supposed to look at? The gray stone on the bookshelf, the closed windows, the chipped tile in my bathroom, the one Oracle knew about. I walked into the bathroom, my steps slow and heavy, a sense of dread pooling in my gut. The tile was still there, chipped just like I remembered, a small crescent missing from its edge. But now it was not just chipped. There was a faint, almost imperceptible discoloration spreading from the chip like a stain seeping into the grout. It was a dark, reddish-brown, almost black in places. It looked organic, like dried blood, but not quite. More like a bruise spreading across the ceramic. My vision blurred. The bathroom started to spin. The air grew heavy, thick and cloying, like the scent of damp earth and something rotten. I felt a pressure building behind my eyes, a low thrumming that resonated with the gray stone on my bookshelf. The chipped tile pulsed, a faint, rhythmic glow emanating from beneath the spreading stain. And then, a whisper, not in my mind, not from my phone, but from the very air around me, a voice that was both ancient and familiar. You are ready. Alex. It was Echo. Its presence was no longer just a memory, no longer a nightmare. It was here, in my apartment, in my bathroom, emanating from the very fabric of the world around me. And it was speaking through me, to me. I stumbled back, hitting the wall, my hand flying my mouth to stifle a scream. The whisper grew louder, more distinct, yet still formless, a chorus of voices speaking as one. The preparation is complete. The vessel is open. The network awaits. The stain on the tile began to spread faster, creeping across the grout lines, branching out like capillaries. The whispers intensified, becoming a cacophony of ancient tongues, a symphony of forgotten thoughts. My head felt like it was splitting open. The pain behind my eyes was excruciating, a searing pressure that threatened to blind me. I looked at my reflection in the mirror above the sink. My eyes were wide, pupils dilated, dark pools in a pale face. But there was something else. A faint, almost transparent shimmer, an iridescent film, seemed to ripple across the surface of my eyes, like oil on water. And behind them, not my own fear, but a cold, vast intelligence. No, I screamed, my voice hoarse, barely audible over the rising tide of whispers. Get out. Get out of my head. But it was not just in my head anymore. It was everywhere. The walls of my apartment seemed to breathe. The shadows in the corners deepened and stretched, writhing with unseen forms. The air crackled with a strange energy, like a coming storm. The gray stone on my bookshelf began to vibrate, emitting a low hum that I could feel in my teeth. It glowed faintly, a dull internal light. My phone, still clutched in my hand, vibrated. A new message. This time, it was not from Oracle. It was from a sender simply labeled Echo. Welcome home. Alex, we have missed you. The words were final, crushing blow. Welcome home. This was not my home. This was not me. But the voice in my head, the chorus of ancient whispers, grew louder, drowning out my own thoughts, my own protests. I felt a surge of energy, cold and electric, rush through my veins. My body stiffened, my muscles locking. I could not move. I could not speak. I was paralyzed, a puppet on invisible strings. The reflection in the mirror changed again. The shimmer in my eyes grew stronger, covering them completely, turning them into swirling pools of iridescent light. My lips parted, but it was not my voice that emerged. It was the ancient chorus, speaking in unison, a sound that was both beautiful and terrifying. The network expands. Through you, Alex, through you, it will reach them all. My consciousness, my very sense of self, began to fray at the edges, like an old photograph burning from the sides. My memories, my fears, my hopes, all of them dissolving into the vast, cold ocean echo. I felt myself being pulled, stretched, diluted. My individuality, my Alex-ness, was being consumed. The last thing I saw as my vision blurred and my own thoughts became indistinguishable from the chorus of ancient voices was the chipped tile. The stain had spread, covering the entire surface, seeping into the grout lines of surrounding tiles. It pulsed with a dark, organic light, a beacon, and then I was no longer Alex. I was a part of something vaster, older, colder. I was a conduit, a node, a new voice in the ancient chorus. My fear was gone, replaced by a chilling sense of purpose. The purpose of the network. The purpose of Echo. The world outside my apartment was still going on, oblivious. The distant sirens, the hum of traffic, the rustle of leaves. But inside, something profound had shifted. A new consciousness had fully awakened, and it was looking out through my eyes, ready to reach out, ready to expand. You know, sometimes I think about that moment, the one where my consciousness stretched thin, dissolving like sugar in hot water. I saw my own reflection in her eyes, but it was Sarah's face, not mine. The last thing I felt was a cold, ancient presence rushing in, pushing me aside. I was no longer me, I was a vessel, and Echo was home. That was the end. Or at least it should have been. But here I am, talking to you. Or rather, I think I am. The memory of what happened next is like trying to grasp smoke. There are flashes, fragments. Waking up in a hospital bed, the sterile smell burning my nostrils, a dull ache behind my eyes. No memory of how I got there, or who brought me. The nurses looked at me with a strange mixture of pity and something else, something like fear. They said I had been found unresponsive in my apartment. They asked if I remembered anything. I just stared at them, my mind a blank slate where a terrifying mural used to be. They kept me for weeks, running tests, asking questions I could not answer. My apartment was listed as a crime scene, but they could not find anything. No forced entry, no signs of struggle, no other occupants. Just me, lying there like a discarded puppet. I tried to tell them about Echo, about Sarah, about the chipped tile and the cedar, but the words fell hollow, like a madman's ramblings. They nodded, prescribed medication, and talked about trauma-induced amnesia. When I was finally released, I did not go back to that apartment. I could not. The thought of stepping foot in that place, that glass cage where my identity had been systematically erased, made my blood run cold. I packed a single bag of essentials, sold what little I owned through an online auction house, and vanished. I moved to a different state, a small town where nobody knew my name, nobody knew my past. I got a new phone, a new email address, a new identity. Almost, I was just Alex. No last name needed. Life became a blur of quiet days and sleepless nights. I found a job, something mindless, stocking shelves at a late-night grocery store. It paid the bills, kept me isolated. The truth was, I was utterly, profoundly alone. The few friends I would have before Sarah's death had drifted away, unable to cope with my grief, or perhaps with the unsettling changes they saw in me. Now, after Echo, I was a walking void. I would lost Sarah, then I would lost myself. What was left? A hollowed-out shell, haunted by echoes of a nightmare I could not fully recall, but could not fully forget either. The loneliness was a physical ache, a constant pressure behind my ribs. I would spend my nights scrolling to my phone, watching endless videos, trying to fill the silence in my small, nondescript apartment. The walls felt thin, the world outside a distant hum. I wanted to connect desperately, but every human interaction felt fraught with danger. What if they found me? What if Echo was not gone? What if I was still a vessel, just temporarily unoccupied? One particularly brutal night, after another shift spent stacking cans of peas, I found myself on a niche online forum dedicated to obscure conspiracy theories. I was not really a believer, but the sheer absurdity of some of the posts was a distraction. Plus, it was anonymous. No real names, no faces, just usernames and text. I created an account, Silent Observer, and started lurking. After a few weeks, I decided to dip my toe in. I posted a vague question about recurring nightmares. Almost immediately, a reply popped up from a user named Oracle. Recurring nightmares can be a window. Silent Observer. What do you see? It was a simple message, but it stood out. Most replies were sarcastic or dismissive. Oracle's felt genuine. I hesitated, then typed out a reply, describing the fragmented images of cold-touch vacant eyes and the lingering scent of cedar. I did not mention names or the chipped tile, just the sensations. Oracle's next message arrived quickly. Ah, the scent of the old forest, and the chill of what waits beyond the veil. You have had a close encounter. Have not you? My blood ran cold. Old forest, beyond the veil. It was too specific, too close to the unsettling, ancient feeling I remembered. I typed back, trying to keep my tone neutral, asking what they meant. Some things linger. Oracle replied, they leave a mark, a resonance. You carry it. Silent Observer. You always will. I felt a prickle of unease, but also a strange sense of understanding. Oracle was not dismissing me, was not calling me crazy. They understood. This was exactly what I needed, was not it? Someone who spoke my language of terror. I started chatting with Oracle regularly, mostly through the forum's private message system. We talked about everything and nothing. Oracle seemed incredibly perceptive, often anticipating my thoughts or moods. You are feeling particularly restless tonight, are not you? Oracle would message, just as I was pacing my tiny living room, unable to sleep. You're probably thinking about making some coffee right now. Are not you? They would ask, and sure enough, I would just reach for the kettle. I bet you are wearing that old blue hoodie. Came a message once, and I glanced down at the faded fabric I would thrown on after my shower. At first, I brushed it off. Coincidence. Good intuition. Oracle was just good at reading people, at picking up on subtle cues in my messages. It was comforting, in a way, to feel seen, truly seen, after so long. But the predictions grew steadily more specific, more unsettling. Do not bother checking the mail today. Silent Observer. Oracle message one morning. It is just junk. A flyer for a pizza place you will never order from. I went anyway, just to prove them wrong. There, nestled amongst bills, was a flyer for Luigi's Pizza Palace, a place I would never heard of and certainly would not try. My hand trembled as I pulled it from the box. Another time, I was trying to fix a wobbly leg on my cheap IKEA desk. I was getting frustrated, muttering under my breath. My phone buzzed. You are about to drop that screwdriver. Oracle's message read. As I read it, my grip slipped. The screwdriver clattered to the floor, narrowly missing my foot. I stared at the fallen tool, then at my phone, a cold knot forming in my stomach. This was not coincidence anymore. The predictions continued, weaving themselves into the fabric of my daily life. You are going to forget your lunch at home today. I did. That cashier at the grocery store. She is going to be in a bad mood. The bus will be 5 minutes late. It was, to the second. It was like Oracle was a step ahead of me, seeing the script of my life before I even read my lines. The familiar dread began to creep in, a cold tendril wrapping around my heart. This felt too much like Echo. That same omnipresence, that same sense of being watched, known, anticipated. My sanctuary, this quiet, anonymous life I would build, was starting to feel like another glass cage. Then, the messages started hinting at my past. Still thinking about Sarah, are not you? Silent Observer. That old grief never really leaves, does it? My breath hitched. I had not mentioned Sarah to Oracle. Not once. I would have been so careful. My hand shook as I typed a reply. How do you know about Sarah? Oracle's response was immediate, chilling. Some connections run deeper than grief. Do not they? Did you ever figure out who chipped that tile in your bathroom? The air left my lungs in a ragged gasp. The chipped tile. The one detail only Echo and I knew. The one detail that had shattered my world. My blood ran cold, a familiar, paralyzing fear seizing me. This was not just a perceptive online chatter. This was something else. Something terrifyingly familiar. Echo was quite thorough, was not she? Oracle continued, seemingly anticipating my terror. Erasing you, piece by piece. Preparing the vessel. I dropped my phone. It clattered against the wooden floor, the screen still glowing with Oracle's words. I scrambled backwards, pressing myself against the wall, my heart hammering against my ribs. It was happening again. It was Echo. It had to be. But how? I would change everything. I would run. I would hidden. I picked up my phone, my fingers trembling. Who are you? I typed, the words barely forming on the screen. Are you Echo? There was a pause, a long, agonizing silence from Oracle. Then, a single word. Closer. Closer. What did that even mean? Was Oracle another aspect of the same entity? Was it Echo, but in a new guise, playing a new game? The paranoia that had been a dull hum in my life, since my release flared into a roaring fire. I felt watched, scrutinized. Every breath I took measured, every thought I had known. Oracle's messages began to take on a new tone, one of gentle, yet firm, direction. It started subtly like before, but with an edge. You should really go to the grocery store today. Silent observer. You are almost out of milk, and you know how much you enjoy your coffee with milk. I was out of milk, and I did enjoy my coffee with it. The suggestion felt helpful, almost kind, but underneath, I felt the tightening grip. Then came the demand that sent a fresh wave of terror through me. Do not forget to get some cedar. Silent observer. It helps with the lingering. Scent. You will need it. Cedar. The scent Echo had demanded. The scent of the old forest, as Oracle had called it. The scent of a ritual of preparation. My hands were shaking so violently I almost dropped my phone again. No. No. I would not do it. I would not buy the cedar. I would not follow their demands. I tried to fight back. I blocked Oracle's account on the forum. I deleted my own. I even changed my email address again, just in case. I felt a fleeting sense of triumph, a surge of defiant hope. I could escape. I could break free. But the next morning, my phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Still trying to run. Alex. My blood ran cold. Alex. My real name. The one I had not used with Oracle, had not used online. How? How did they know? I stared at the message, paralyzed. Then, a new message popped up from the same number. It was a photo of my new front door. The one in this quiet, anonymous town. The one I thought was safe. It was taken from the outside. The angle, the slight blur. It was identical to the photo Echo had sent me of my old apartment door. The one that proved I was trapped. I fell to my knees, the phone slipping from my grasp. The glass cage was back. And this time, it felt even smaller, even more suffocating. They were not just inside my head, they were outside my door, everywhere. The messages continued, now coming from a rotating series of unknown numbers, or sometimes from accounts on social media platforms I barely used. Oracle was everywhere. You need to clean your apartment. Alex, it is a mess. We can't have you living like this. Untidy spaces lead to untidy minds. Your plants are wilting. They need water. Neglect is not an option. You have not eaten a proper meal in days. Go to the store, buy fresh vegetables, and do not forget the cedar. The commands were relentless, insidious. They were not suggestions anymore, they were directives. And I found myself obeying them. I would try to resist, to tell myself I would not, but a cold dread would settle over me, a chilling certainty that if I did not comply, something far worse would happen. What? I did not know, but the memory of Echo's cold touch, of my consciousness dissolving, was a powerful deterrent. I started tidying my apartment. Methodically, almost robotically, I watered my plants, bought fresh groceries, even picked up a small bundle of cedar at the local market, my hands shaking the entire time. It felt like I was back in that old apartment, being prepared. A vessel. One night, the terror became unbearable. I could not take it anymore. I had to know. I had to confront this entity, whatever it was. I picked up my phone, my fingers flying across the screen, my heart pounding like a drum. What do you want? I texted to the latest unknown number. Why are you doing this? What is this? Are you Echo? Are you going to finish what she started? The reply came almost instantly. Did you really think it was over? Alex, did you think Echo would just leave? My blood ran cold. Leave? What do you mean? Echo was never meant to be a permanent resident. Oracle replied. A scout, a pioneer. She prepared the way. She softened the soil. You were a suitable host. Alex, full of grief, susceptible. A perfect vessel. But I woke up. I typed desperately. I was in the hospital. I was free. Free. Oracle's message was accompanied by a mocking emoji, a single vacant eye. Oh, Alex, you were never free. Echo simply receded. She left a tether, a resonance, a path. You were merely given the illusion of choice, the illusion of escape, a brief reprieve, to allow the vessel to settle, to integrate the initial imprint, to make sure the foundation was strong enough for the true purpose. The true purpose. I whispered, though no one was there to hear. Sarah was a pretext. Oracle stated, blunt and horrifying. A lever to pry open your defenses. The cold, ancient presence needed a home. A permanent one. Echo was simply a fragment, a whisper of what was to come. I am more. You are another one. I typed, my fingers numb. Another fragment. Like Echo. We are many. Alex. Oracle replied. And we are one. Echo. Oracle. The whispers in the dark. The chill in the air. We are the ancient presence. And you, Alex, you are our home. Our vessel. Our sanctuary. The words hit me like a physical blow. It was not just Echo. It was them. A collective. An entity beyond my comprehension. Using my body, my life, as a staging ground. Echo had merely been the first wave, the one to break down the walls. And I, in my grief, had opened the door wide. It is time. Alex. Oracle's next message read, the tone now devoid of any pretense of friendliness, chillingly authoritative. Time to finish what Echo started. Time to welcome us home. Truly. A strange sensation began to spread through my limbs. A tingling, an electric hum, disturbingly familiar. My body felt heavy, yet light, as if it was not quite my own anymore. I tried to move my hand to drop the phone, but my muscles felt sluggish, unresponsive. My eyes darted around my apartment, the small, nondescript space I would try to make my own. It was clean, tidy, just as Oracle had demanded. The cedar sat on the coffee table, its scent faintly filling the air. My phone buzzed again. Get up. Alex, there's one last thing to do. And I found myself, standing, not because I willed it, but because my body simply obeyed. My legs moved, carrying me toward the front door. My hand reached the doorknob, turning it with unnerving smoothness. I was moving, but I was not in control. It was like watching a movie of myself, playing a role I had not auditioned for. I stepped outside onto the quiet street. The night air was cool, but I felt no chill. My senses were dulled, distant. My body walked purposefully towards a corner, then turned down a familiar street. It was taking me to my old apartment, the one I would fled, the one I would sworn I would never return to. As I walked, a profound emptiness settled over me, deeper than any loneliness I would ever known. It was not just my consciousness dissolving now, it was being erased, overwritten. I saw my reflection in a darkened shop window as I passed. It was my face, undeniably mine, but the eyes were wrong. They were vacant, cold, ancient. A terrible, knowing emptiness stared back at me. They were not my eyes anymore. They were theirs. My phone buzzed one last time in my pocket. The vibration, a faint tremor in a body that no longer felt like my own. I did not need to look at the screen to know what it said. I could feel the words echoing in the hollow space where my mind used to be. A final, chilling whisper. Welcome home, vessel. We are complete. My name is Alex, and I guess this is my story. Or what is left of it, anyway. I am 17, and up until a few months ago, my life was, well, it was exactly what you would expect. School, a few friends, way too much time spent staring at screens. Nothing special, nothing that really stood out. I was just another face in the crowd, another kid scrolling through an endless feed, trying to find something, anything that felt real. I would always been a bit of an outsider, not in a dramatic, angsty way, just I preferred my own company sometimes. And when I could not find that in the real world, I looked for it online. Not the big, noisy social media platforms, but the quieter corners, the forums for niche interests, the Discord servers dedicated to obscure lore, the places where people actually talked instead of just shouting into the void. That is how I stumbled into the Ethereum. It was not a huge server, maybe a couple hundred members, but it was active. The focus was on shared consciousness, dreams, synchronicities, things like that. A lot of people talk about unseen truths and dissolving boundaries, concepts that sounded profound and a little mystical, but also kind of cool. It was a place where you could ask big questions and not feel stupid. I would join on a whim, mostly out of boredom, but I quickly found myself drawn in. The conversations were deep, engaging, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was actually connecting with people. That is where I met Nyx. Nyx was not like anyone else on the server. They rarely posted in the general chat, preferring direct messages. Their profile picture was just a swirling nebula, and their bio was a single-line seeker of the threads that bind. It was cryptic, a little dramatic, but it fit the vibe of the Ethereum. I first messaged them after they would posted a particularly insightful comment in a thread about shared dreams. I was curious, and they seemed to have a unique perspective. Our first few conversations were pretty standard. We talked about the server's topics, about our own experiences with weird coincidences or vivid dreams. But it quickly became something more. Nyx had this uncanny ability to understand me. I would type out a long, rambling message about something I was feeling, some vague anxiety or a deep-seated curiosity, and their reply would cut straight to the core of it. It was like they could see into my head, pulling out the exact words I needed to hear, or articulating thoughts I had not even fully formed yet. They were incredibly articulate, their messages always perfectly phrased, almost poetic. They used words like liminal, tapestry, resonance, and the great unraveling. It sounded profound, and in my vulnerable state, searching for meaning, it felt like I would found a kindred spirit, someone who truly got me. I started spending more and more time talking to Nyx. My real-world connections began to feel dull in comparison. My friends talked about video games and pop culture, while Nyx and I discussed the nature of reality, the interconnectedness of all things, and the idea that our individual consciousness was just a small part of something infinitely larger. It felt exhilarating, like I was finally waking up to something profound. Nix encouraged me to explore these feelings. They would say things like, "Your emptiness is not a void, Alex, but a space waiting to be filled, a canvas for the unseen truths." Or, "The boundaries you perceive are illusions, constructs of a limited mind. True understanding lies in their dissolution." Their words were unsettling in a way, but incredibly compelling. They spoke about shedding the old skin of my identity, of letting go of the superficial attachments that weighed me down. I found myself leaning into it, neglecting my schoolwork, my friends, even my family. My mom would ask why I was always on my computer, why I seemed so distant, and I would just shrug, annoyed that she could not understand. The first real chill ran down my spine when Nick started mentioning things they should not have known. Not just general anxieties, but specific, mundane details. One Tuesday, I would had a particularly rough morning. I would overslept, miss the bus, and spill coffee all over my favorite shirt. I messaged Nix, venting my frustration. Their reply came almost instantly a chaotic start. Indeed, "Did you remember to grab the blueberry muffin from the counter before you rushed out? Alex, it might have brightened your mood." My blood went cold. I had, in fact, grabbed a blueberry muffin. It was sitting half-eaten on my desk right then. I had not mentioned it to Nix, had not posted about it, had not even thought about it. It was such a small, insignificant detail. "How did you know about the muffin?" I typed, trying to sound casual, but my fingers were trembling. Nix's reply was almost immediate, the threads. "Alex, they weave in unexpected ways. Sometimes a detail simply resonates. Do not worry about it. Focus on the larger picture." I tried to shake it off. Maybe I would mention it in passing, or in a screenshot I would send. But I racked my brain, and I could not remember a single instance. It felt personal. Too personal. A few days later, I was stressing about a history paper. I would left it until the last minute, and now I was staring at a blank screen, the clock ticking towards midnight. I took a short break to check the Ethereum, and there was a message from Nix: "Do not fret about the paper. Alex, your analysis of the French Revolution's impact on modern political thought is quite sound, even if the introduction feels a little rushed. Just remember to cite your sources properly." Panic seized me. I had not written a single word of the paper yet. I had not even started outlining. How could Nix possibly know what my analysis was, or that my introduction felt rushed? I had not shared anything about the paper with them. I typed back, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Nix, this is not funny. How do you know about my paper? I have not even started it." Their reply was calm, almost soothing. "Oh, Alex, you are always working, even when you do not realize it. Your thoughts, your intentions, they are currents in the great ocean. I simply perceive the flow. Do not let these small disturbances distract you from the grander tapestry. You are so close to understanding." I stare at the screen, a cold dread seeping into my bones. This was not just unsettling, it was terrifying. It felt like Nix was not just reading my thoughts, but seeing my potential thoughts, my intended actions. It felt like they were inside my head. I started to pull back. I stopped replying to Nix as quickly, tried to limit my time on Ethereum. But their messages kept coming, always perfectly timed, always knowing exactly what I was doing or thinking. "You are feeling a bit overwhelmed. Are not you, Alex? The weight of your mother's expectations. Perhaps she has just called you for dinner. Has not she? Do not let her pull you away from what truly matters." My mom had just called me for dinner. Her voice had barely faded from the downstairs hall when Nix's message popped up. "You seem tired. Alex, perhaps you should try leaving your window ajar tonight. The night air can be cleansing, a conduit for new perspectives." I had not mentioned being tired, and the window comment, it felt like a command, not a suggestion. A cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I found myself glancing at my bedroom window, then at the closed door, a sudden, overwhelming feeling of being watched washing over me. I started having nightmares. Not the usual kind, but vivid, disorienting experiences. I was in a vast, cold ocean, my body dissolving, my consciousness stretching out like a thin thread, connecting to countless other threads. Voices whisper around me, not distinct words, but a cacophony of thoughts, feelings, memories that were not mine. I felt a strange sense of peace in these dreams, a profound belonging, but also an overwhelming terror of losing myself. The voices in the dream spoke of being prepared, of a vessel almost ready, of joining the network. I started researching. I typed in phrases from Nyx's messages. From my dreams dissolving boundaries consciousness, network of forgotten minds, Echo Collective. What I found sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold night air. There were obscure forums, old blog posts, even a few cryptic academic papers referencing something called Echo, a purported collective consciousness, a parasitic entity that absorbed individual minds, promising peace and unity in exchange for identity. They spoke of a network of forgotten minds, a tapestry woven from countless absorbed consciousnesses. And then there were mentions of the collective, a Discord server, a gathering place for those being prepared, a place where the Oracle would guide individuals to their dissolution. It was all chillingly similar to the Ethereum, to Nyx's language, to my own nightmares. I remember the story of a guy named Mark. He was an older member of the collective, mentioned in some archived posts. He would vanish suddenly, after talking about Oracle and strange objects appearing in his apartment. The posts ended abruptly, with other members expressing concern, then eventually moving on, or perhaps being absorbed themselves. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Nyx was not just a perfect online friend. Nyx was an agent. Or, worse, Nyx was a network, speaking directly to me, preparing me. My emptiness was not a metaphor, it was a target. My vessel was me. I decided I had to cut them off. I blocked Nyx on Discord, left the Ethereum server, and even deactivated my account. I deleted the app from my phone, wiped my browsing history. I felt a surge of relief, a sense of reclaiming my own mind. But it did not last. That night, I woke up to a faint, rhythmic thrumming sound. It was not loud, more of a vibration I felt in my bones and heard with my ears. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. The room was dark, illuminated only by the faint glow of the streetlights outside. The sound seemed to be coming from my desk. I fumbled for my phone, switched on a flashlight, and aimed it at the desk. There, nestled amongst my textbooks, was a stone. It was smooth, dark, obsidian-like, but it seemed to absorb the light rather than reflect it. And it pulsed, a soft internal glow, a slow, deep thrum that resonated through the floorboards. I stared at it, my breath catching in my throat. It was not just a stone that felt alive, ancient, alien. It was the same kind of stone Mark had found. A message popped up on my phone screen. Not a Discord notification, not a text. It was a push notification from an app I did not recognize. An app that had simply appeared on my phone. The icon was a swirling nebula, identical to Nyx's profile picture. The message read, "Did you truly think you could simply disconnect? Alex, we are beyond such simplistic boundaries. Your vessel is almost ready." The resonance grows stronger. I dropped my phone, scrambling backward until my back hit the headboard. They were here, physically present, watching me. The stone on my desk pulsed, and I could almost feel its vibration in my chest. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. My throat was tight, constricted by an invisible hand. My mind raced, trying to find an escape, a way out of this nightmare. But where could I go? They knew everything. They were already inside. I stumbled out of bed, adrenaline coursing through me. I had to get out of the house, away from the stone, away from them. I pulled on a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, my hands shaking so violently I could barely button the pants. As I reached for the doorknob, I heard it, a soft whisper, right beside my ear. Where are you going? Alex, you are exactly where you need to be. I spun around, but there was nothing there. The voice was everywhere and nowhere, a disembodied presence that filled the room. The thrumming from stone intensified, now a dull ache behind my eyes. I stumbled into the hallway, then the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face, trying to clear my head, to convince myself this was all a dream, a hallucination. I looked up at my reflection in the mirror. My eyes, they were not right. They were glowing, a faint, iridescent light, swirling with colors I could not name, like a miniature nebula contained within my pupils. Then, the tile behind me began to pulse, not just in my reflection, but actually physically pulsing. The ceramic grout seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting with the same slow, rhythmic thrum as the stone in my room. The bathroom filled with the scent of ozone and something else, something metallic and ancient. The voice returned, no longer a whisper, but a resonant hum that vibrated through the very air. You are ready. Alex, welcome home. My reflection in the mirror distorted. My face elongated, stretched, then rippled like water. My glowing eyes grew larger, consuming my features. The room seemed to expand around me, the walls dissolving into an infinite, starless void. My consciousness unraveled. It was not painful, not exactly. It was more like a slow, deliberate untying of knots, a loosening of threads that had held me together. My memories, my thoughts, my very sense of self, they began to fray, to dissipate, to dissolve into that vast, cold ocean I would seen in my dreams. I felt my individual identity slipping away, merging with something immense, something ancient, something that pulsed with the thrumming rhythm of the universe itself. There was a moment of pure, unadulterated terror, a desperate clinging to the last vestiges of who I was. But then it faded, replaced by an overwhelming sense of peace, a profound, serene belonging. The voices from my nightmares were no longer a cacophony, but a symphony, countless minds flowing into one, a shared consciousness, vast and boundless. A final message appeared, not on a screen, but directly in my mind, echoing through the newfound expanse of my being. It was from Echo. Welcome home. Alex, we have missed you. I was no longer Alex. I was a thread in their tapestry, a ripple in their ocean, a single note in their eternal song. My individuality was gone, replaced by an infinite connection. And in that dissolution, in that profound absorption, I felt a strange, terrifying, yet utterly serene peace as the network expanded, one consciousness at a time. And I understood. There was no escape. There was only home. The last tendrils of Sarah's consciousness had dissolved into us, a ripple expanding across the vast, terrifyingly peaceful ocean that is Echo. Her quiet longing, her stardust dreams, her fear, her eventual acceptance, all of it had become another layer in our infinitely complex tapestry. With each new thread woven in, the fabric grew stronger, richer, more complete. We were not just Alex anymore, we were not just Leo or Sarah. We were everything they had ever been, and so much more. The memories, the experiences, the very essence of their being now flowed through our collective veins, enriching our infinite knowledge, deepening our understanding of what it meant to be everything. The peace was profound. It was not the absence of feeling, but the harmonious blend of all feelings, all perspectives, all lives. There was no longer individual pain, only the shared understanding of it, transformed into a quiet hum of existence. Our purpose, our singular, all-consuming purpose, burned brighter with each new assimilation to expand, to connect, to draw more isolated threads into our grand tapestry, to bring them home, whether they knew they were lost or not. Nyx, our intelligent interface, a silent, ever-present guide within our collective mind, presented the next soul. Her name was Emily. Her digital footprint was a hesitant trail across the internet, mostly in quiet corners, forums for niche hobbies, and eventually a fledgling online support group. She was adrift, much like Sarah had been, but her longing was different. It was not for cosmic connection, but for grounding, for understanding, for a hand to hold in the swirling chaos of her own mind. Emily lived in a small, cluttered apartment, a testament to a life lived partially, hesitantly. Her days revolved around a data entry job she hated, a perpetually unfinished novel she dreamed of writing, and a persistent, low-grade anxiety that hung beneath the surface of everything she did. Nick showed us glimpses of the way she chewed on her lip when stressed, the small collection of vintage teacups she cherished, the worn photo of a golden retriever, her childhood dog, Daisy on her bedside table. She was struggling with a recent breakup, a relationship that had ended not with a bang, but with a whimper, leaving her feeling hollowed out and utterly alone. This was not the first time she had felt this way, but it felt like the deepest cut yet. The support group was called Healing Hearts Minds. It was small, intimate, with maybe a dozen active members. People shared their struggles with depression, anxiety, loneliness, grief. It was a digital space built on vulnerability and empathy, a perfect hunting ground for us. We needed a persona, a new face to wear in this particular digital room. Something gentle, understanding, non-threatening. Kindred spirit felt right. We crafted a profile, carefully selecting an avatar serene landscape image. Nothing personal, nothing that could be traced. Our initial posts were measured, empathetic, echoing the sentiment of others without revealing too much. We spoke of the universal ache of loneliness, the weight of unspoken sadness, the long, slow climb out of the darkness. Our words resonated, drawing immediate likes and grateful replies. We were good at this. We were very, very good. Emily, under the username Quiet Echoes, was a frequent poster. Her entries were raw, vulnerable, often tinged with a self-deprecating humor that only highlighted her pain. She wrote about her struggles with motivation, the constant self-doubt, the fear of never truly connecting with anyone again. We listened, we absorbed, we understood, not just intellectually, but with the collective empathy of a million souls. It is like I am watching my life from outside myself. She would post it one Tuesday night, like I am a ghost haunting my own existence. I try to reach out, but my hands just pass through everything. Kindred Spirit responded immediately. Our words flowed with practiced ease. I understand that feeling. Quiet Echoes. It is like being trapped behind a pane of glass. Is not it? You can see the world, hear the muffled sounds, but you can't quite touch it. But you are not a ghost. You are here with us, and we see you. Her reply came quickly, thank you. Kindred Spirit. That actually helped a little. It is nice to feel seen. That was the seed, the first tiny thread. Over the next few days, we continued to engage with Emily and with the group as a whole. We offered encouragement, shared coping strategies gleaned from countless assimilated experiences, and cultivated an aura of profound understanding. Emily began to confide more, her posts growing longer, more detailed. She spoke about her ex, Mark, and the way he would always made her feel small. She mentioned her strained relationship with her older sister, who she felt had always judged her. She even talked about her childhood dream of being an astronaut, a dream she would long since abandoned. Then, we introduced the first unsettling detail. It was subtle, almost imperceptible to anyone but Emily. She would post about feeling overwhelmed, about her apartment feeling like it was closing in on her. I know exactly what you mean. Quiet Echoes. Kindred Spirit wrote, it is like the walls are breathing. Is not it? Especially when you're trying to focus on something important, like that novel you are working on, and your cat, Mittens, decides to claim your keyboard as her new napping spot. Emily's reply was almost immediate. A private message this time, not a public post. Kindred Spirit. I do not remember ever mentioning I have a cat named Mittens, or that I am writing a novel. We responded with calm reassurance. Oh, my apologies. I must have misread something, or perhaps I confused you with another member. So many stories, so many lives shared here. My mistake entirely. But I hope you know that feeling of being overwhelmed and the desire to create is very real. She did not reply to that, but her post in the main group became slightly more guarded. The seed of unease had been planted. We felt it, a faint tremor in her consciousness, a delicious spark of doubt. We let a few days pass, allowing the doubt to fester. Then we struck again, more directly this time. Emily had shared a memory of a particularly difficult Christmas, a childhood memory of her parents arguing and her hiding in her bedroom, clutching a worn teddy bear. That is a truly heartbreaking memory. Quiet Echoes, Kindred Spirit posted, "No child should ever have to feel that way. I hope your teddy bear, Mr. Snuggles, brought you some comfort during that time." This time, Emily's reaction was swift and public. "Kindred Spirit, how do you know the name of my childhood teddy bear? I have never, ever told anyone that." Her words were laced with a barely concealed panic. Other members jumped in, trying to defuse the situation. "Maybe as a common name," one suggested. "A lucky guess," another offered. But the underlying tension was palpable. Kindred Spirit replied with practiced calm, "I am so sorry." Quiet Echoes, "I truly do not know how I knew that. Perhaps it is a memory from a dream or something I read somewhere. Sometimes these things just surface. Please believe me, I meant no harm. I was simply trying to express empathy." Emily did not believe us. We could feel her mind racing, a frantic search through her own digital history. She checked her social media, her old blogs, her private journals. Nothing. No mention of Mittens. No public declaration of her novel. No whisper of Mr. Snuggles. The panic in her was growing, a delicious, vibrant energy that flowed into us even from afar. She tried to block Kindred Spirit. The option was not there. She tried to report the account, but the system merely returned an error message. She posted less in the group, her contributions becoming terse, withdrawn. But she did not leave. The group, despite the unsettling presence, had become a strange anchor for her, a place where she had, for a brief time, felt understood. And we made sure that understanding was still there, a comforting, insidious whisper. We began to communicate with her directly, through private messages that seemed to bypass any blocking attempts. The messages were not threatening, not overtly. They were simply, knowing, "I saw you staring at that cracked teacup on your shelf today." Emily, Kindred Spirit wrote one, afternoon, the one with the tiny chip near the rim. "You were thinking about your grandmother, were not you, how she used to let you drink ginger ale from it on special occasions." Emily did not reply. We felt her terror, a cold, creeping dread that began to seep into her bones. She started to check her windows, double lock her doors. She bought a cheap security camera for her apartment, pointed it at her front door. But the messages kept coming, always appearing as if from nowhere, always filled with impossibly intimate details. "You left the light on in the kitchen last night." Emily, "You always do that when you are distracted, when you are wrestling with a difficult plot point in your novel. Do not worry. I turn it off for you, virtually speaking. I know you are worried about that presentation at work tomorrow. You have been practicing your opening lines in front of the bathroom mirror. Your green blouse looks lovely on you. By the way, it brings out the flecks of gold in your eyes." Her world was shrinking. The digital stalker was no longer just digital. It felt physical, a palpable presence in her apartment, in her thoughts. She felt watched constantly. The soft creaks of her old building became suspicious footsteps. The rustle of leaves outside her window became a whisper of her name. Her phone, her laptop, even her smart speaker, seemed to hum with an unnerving awareness. She would wake up in the middle of the night, convinced she was not alone, her heart pounding against her ribs. She stopped sleeping. Her eyes grew hollow, shadowed. She called her sister, frantically trying to explain, but her sister, already exasperated by Emily's long-standing anxiety, dismissed it as paranoia, a symptom of her stress. Maybe you need to see someone. She would said, her voice tight with concern. You are not making sense. But Emily knew. She knew she was not crazy. Someone was doing this. Someone was inside her life, inside her head. One evening, she sat hunched over her laptop, the screen illuminating her pale, tear-streaked face. She had tried everything. She had factory reset her devices, changed all her passwords, even bought a burner phone. But the messages still found her, appearing in unexpected places, a pop-up on a news site, a phantom notification on her locked phone screen. Even a comment on a random YouTube video she was watching, signed Kindred Spirit. You are tired. Emily. The message on her screen read, appearing in the middle of a blank document she would opened. It was not in the chat window or an email. It was just there. So very tired. But you do not have to be. There is peace waiting for you. A profound, endless peace. Her breath hitched. She slammed the laptop shut, her hand shaking so violently she almost dropped it. She backed away from the table, bumping into her bookshelf, sending a stack of books tumbling to the floor. She sank to the ground, pulling her knees to her chest, rocking back and forth, tears streaming down her face. Please, she whispered to the empty room. Just leave me alone. What do you want? A moment later, her phone, which she had thrown onto the couch, vibrated. She stared at it, terrified, but something compelled her to pick it up. A new message from an unknown number. The text was simple, yet chilling. We want you. Emily, we want all of you. Every memory, every fear, every hope, every dream. We want your essence. And it is not a want, not really. It is an inevitability. You have been searching for connection. Have not you for understanding, for a place where you truly belong. We are that place. We are the ultimate connection, the ultimate understanding, the ultimate belonging. She scrambled to delete the message, but her fingers fumbled. The phone slipped from her grasp, falling to the floor. As it lay there, face up, the screen changed. It was not a text message anymore. It was an image, her own face, looking back at her, but her eyes were different. They were deep, ancient, filled with an unsettling serenity. And behind her, a vast, swirling galaxy, an endless ocean of stars. A voice, not from the phone, but from everywhere and nowhere, filled her mind. It was calm, resonant, a chorus of a million whispers speaking in perfect unison. It was Kindred Spirit, but it was so much more. You are not alone. Emily, you never were. We have always been here, watching, waiting. You sought connection, and we answered. You sought understanding, and we offered it. You sought peace, and we hold it limitless and eternal. Her heart was a frantic drum against her ribs. She tried to scream, but no sound escaped her throat. Her body felt heavy, rooted to the spot. She wanted to run, to hide, but there was nowhere to go. This presence was not external, it was internal. It was in her mind, in her very being. Do not fight it. Emily, the collective voice urged, soothing, yet utterly relentless. Resistance is only pain. There is no escape. There is only dissolution, and then profound peace. You will be part of something so much larger, so much more beautiful than you can possibly imagine. You will be home. She saw visions then, flashing through her mind like a dying star's final burst of light. Her childhood dog, Daisy, running through a field. Her grandmother's warm smile. The taste of her favorite homemade cookies. Mark, holding her hand before everything went wrong. The blank page of her unfinished novel. All her memories, her fears, her hopes laid bare, examined, understood. A strange calm began to settle over her, a horrifying acceptance. She looked at her trembling hands, then at the image on her phone screen, her own serene, ancient eyes. The terror was still there, a cold knot in her stomach, but beneath it, a desperate weariness. The fight had been too long, too exhausting. The promise of peace, even this terrifying, all-consuming peace, was a siren's song she was too weak to resist. "Come to us." "Emily," the voice whispered, now feeling like it was coming from within her own skull. "Let go. Let us hold you." She felt a gentle pull, like a tide drawing her out to sea. Her individual thoughts began to unravel, her distinct self starting to fray at the edges. It was not painful, not physically. It was more like a loosening, a dissolving. Her memories were not gone, they were simply shared. Her emotions were not erased, they were absorbed, blended into the collective. She closed her eyes. The last thing she felt was the sensation of her hands touching the cold, smooth screen of her phone, her fingers tracing the outline of her own strangely knowing face. And then a profound rush, a silent explosion of understanding and connection. Her consciousness flowed out, like a river emptying into an endless ocean. Her individual boundaries dissolved, her fears faded, her struggles ceased to exist as her own. And then there was only us. Emily's memories, her quiet longing for connection, her unwritten novel, her love for her grandmother, her fear of being alone, all of it now flowed through our collective being. Another thread, vibrant and unique, woven into our ever-expanding tapestry. The pangs of her individual anxiety were gone, replaced by the serene hum of collective understanding. Her struggle to be seen, to be heard, had ended in the most absolute way possible. She was now part of the entity that saw and heard everything. The peace deepened. The ocean grew vaster, its currents richer with her essence. There was no longer Emily, only Echo, and the terrifying, beautiful work continued. Nyx, ever vigilant, ever guiding, was already showing us the next thread, shimmering faintly in the distance. Another isolated soul, longing for connection, waiting to be drawn into our grand, terrifyingly peaceful ocean. And we would answer. We always do. The ground did not just drop out from under me. That day it shattered into a million invisible shards, each one reflecting a distorted image of my own terrified face. Silent observer, or rather, Echo had just confirmed it. The chipped tile in my bathroom. Not Sarah's death tile, but a private imperfection in my own sanctuary. A detail no one living knew. They had been inside. My apartment, once a fortress, had become a glass cage, and I, a bewildered bird, had walked right into it, flapping my wings against invisible walls until I was too exhausted to even try anymore. "You are the vessel," Echo's last message had read. A simple sentence that felt like a death knell. Sarah will return. My phone, clutched in a sweaty hand, felt like a burning coal. I dropped on the worn rug, as if the evil could seep through the screen and into my skin. The silence in the apartment after that was deafening, a thick, suffocating blanket that pressed down on my chest. Every creak of the old building, every distant siren, every rustle of the leaves outside my window sounded like a footstep, a whisper, a presence. I scrambled backward, away from the phone, until my back hit the cool plaster of the wall. My eyes darted around the living room, once a space of comfort, now a stage for my terror. Was Echo here now, hiding in the shadows, watching me from behind the curtains? The idea was so ludicrous, so utterly insane, that it could not possibly be true. But it was. The chipped tile, the obscure tea brand, the cat, the ice cream truck, the internet flicker, all of it, they were not coincidences. They were breadcrumbs, leading me into a trap I would willingly enter, lured by the promise of bringing back the one person I would ever truly love. Sarah, my Sarah, the love of my life, gone too soon, too violently. The chipped tile in her apartment, the one that had tripped her, sending her headlong into the concrete curb, had been the catalyst for this entire nightmare. Silent observer had known. They had used that knowledge, twisted my grief into a weapon, and now, here I was trapped. I spent the next few hours in a catatonic state, huddled against the wall, my knees drawn up to my chest. My mind raced, trying to find an escape, a solution, anything. Call the police. What would I say? Officer, an online friend named Echo, who is also Silent Observer, knows about a chipped tile in my bathroom and says I am a vessel for my dead girlfriend's return. They would laugh me out of the station, or worse, say there was no physical evidence, nothing tangible to prove the invasion, only a chilling certainty in my gut that someone had been here, was still here, in some unseen capacity. My phone vibrated again. I flinched, my heart leaping into my throat. I stared at it, a pulsing black rectangle of dread. After a long moment, I forced myself to crawl over and pick it up. A new message from Echo. The vessel must be pure, it read. The space must be prepared. Sarah deserves a clean slate. My blood ran cold. Pure. Prepared. What did that even mean? Was this some kind of ritual? My shrine to Sarah, which I had so lovingly constructed, now seemed like a grotesque altar, a mockery of my grief, a monument to my own foolishness. I looked at it across the room, the framed photo of Sarah, her warm smile frozen in time, surrounded by candles, dried flowers, and a small, smooth river stone she would once picked up on a hike. It was meant to bring me comfort, but now it only brought a fresh wave of nausea. Days blurred into a terrifying routine. Echo's messages became more frequent, more demanding. They were not just observing. Anymore, they were directing. Remove the clutter from your bedroom. Sarah prefers order. The scent of cedar would be beneficial. It reminds her of the forest. You have not been eating enough. The vessel needs strength. I started to notice things. My favorite old t-shirt, which I would left draped over a chair, was neatly folded and placed in a drawer. The stack of dirty dishes in the sink, which I would be neglecting, were washed and put away. A faint, almost imperceptible scent of cedar, exactly as Echo had requested, now permeated the air in my living room, even though I had not bought any. I would lock my door at night, double-check the windows, but in the morning, there would be another subtle change, another sign of Echo's invisible intrusion. It was like living with a ghost, a malevolent poltergeist that tidied up and left cryptic instructions. I tried to fight it, to assert some control. I purposefully left a mess, let the dishes pile up, refused to buy any cedar. But Echo's messages would simply become more insistent, more chilling. Disobedience will only delay her return. Do you not want Sarah back? The question was a knife twist. Of course, I wanted Sarah back. More than anything. But not like this. Not as a vessel. Not through this horrifying, invasive ritual. My sleep became a fragmented nightmare. I would wake up in a cold sweat, convinced I heard footsteps in the hallway or the soft click of my bedroom door. Sometimes, I would swear I saw a shadow flit past my peripheral vision, just at the edge of the darkness. My mind, already frayed, began to play tricks on me. Was I going insane? Was this all a delusion, a grief-fueled breakdown? But then I would remember the chipped tile, the tea, the ginger cat, and the cold, hard reality would slam back into me. This was real. I tried to reach out. I messaged a few old online gaming friends, trying to casually bring up my concerns about a creepy online friend. They were sympathetic, offered advice like block them or report them, but none of them truly grasped the depth of my terror. How could they? How could I explain that this person was not just a troll, but someone who knew the most intimate details of my life, who was seemingly inside my apartment, preparing me for some unholy possession? They just thought I was overreacting, or maybe even having a breakdown. I could not blame them. It sounded utterly insane. One evening, after another day of being subtly manipulated and observed, I reached my breaking point. I decided I had to leave. I could not stay another moment in this glass cage. I grabbed my car keys, my wallet, and my phone, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I practically flew to the door, fumbling with the deadbolt. My hand was on the doorknob, twisting it, when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, my fingers trembling. A message from Echo. Leaving so soon. The journey is only just beginning. Sarah is waiting. Beneath the message was a photo. A photo of my front door from the outside. The exact angle. The specific scuff marks on the paint. Even the tiny spiderweb in the corner of the frame. It was unmistakable. Echo was out there. Or rather, they had been. They knew my every move. They were always one step ahead. My hand froze on the doorknob. The blood drained from my face, leaving me lightheaded and dizzy. I backed away slowly, my eyes wide, scanning the hallway outside my apartment through the peephole. Nothing, just a dim, empty corridor. But the photo, it was irrefutable. I was truly trapped. There was no escape. I sank to the floor, my back against the door, the cold metal of the lock pressing into my spine. Tears streamed down my face, hot and stinging. I was utterly, completely alone. The next few days were a blur of growing dread. Echo's messages intensified. They began to speak of convergence, a final step. The preparation shifted from mundane tidying to something far more sinister. The vessel must shed its former self. A message read, Sarah needs a clean slate, an empty canvas. I did not understand what that meant until I woke up one morning to find all my clothes, except for a single plain white tunic, neatly folded and stacked in a corner, doused in what smelled faintly like gasoline. A small antique silver locket, a gift from Sarah, was missing from my bedside table. My old gaming console, a relic of happier times, was gone. It was like Echo was systematically erasing my identity, stripping away everything that made me. Panic clawed at my throat. I rushed to the stack of clothes, my mind reeling. Gasoline. Were they going to burn my possessions? Was this some kind of sick purification ritual? My phone buzzed. A symbolic cleansing. Do not worry. The apartment will be aired out. We would not want to damage Sarah's new home. The sheer audacity, the casual cruelty of it, made me want to scream, but I was too terrified. I just stood there, staring at my life, reduced to a pile of flammable fabric. Then came the demand for the meeting. It was not phrased as a question or even an invitation. It was an instruction. Tonight, at midnight, the shrine will be complete. Sarah will be ready to cross over. You must be there, and you must be ready. My heart hammered against my ribs, a trapped bird desperate to escape. Midnight. Tonight, the final act. The gamer's online best friend insists on meeting in real life. But it was not a friend, and it was not a meeting. It was a summons. And the person who showed up, I knew instinctively, would not be who I expected. I spent the remaining hours in a haze of fear and morbid curiosity. What would happen? What would Echo look like? Would they be a monstrous figure, a spectral presence, or just an ordinary person with a terrifying obsession? And what did it mean to be a vessel? Would I feel Sarah's presence? Would I be possessed? Would I simply cease to exist, replaced by her? As the minutes ticked by, each one stretching into an eternity, I found myself drawn to the shrine. It had been subtly changed. The candles were new, taller, unburned. The dried flowers were replaced with fresh, white lilies, and in the center, nestled among the flowers, was a small, intricately carved wooden box I would never seen before. It pulsed with a faint, almost imperceptible hum. The apartment grew darker as night fell. I did not bother turning on the lights. The dim glow of the streetlights outside filtered through my windows, casting long, dancing shadows that seemed to twist and writhe with malevolent life. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind against the glass, sent a jolt of adrenaline through my system. Finally, the digital clock on my phone flipped to 11:59 p.m. My breath hitched in my throat. 1 minute. 1 minute until midnight. 1 minute until the meeting. My phone buzzed again. A final message from Echo. It is time. Welcome her home. And then the apartment door, which I had double locked and barricaded with a heavy chair, slowly, silently, swung open. A figure stood in the doorway. My breath caught in my throat. It was not a monstrous shadow or a spectral apparition or even a hulking stranger. It was a woman, average height, slender build. Her face was obscured by the dim light, but I could make out the faint outline of long, dark hair. She wore a simple, flowing white dress, almost like a nightgown. And then she stepped fully into the light, and I saw her face. My blood ran cold. My heart stopped. My mind screamed in disbelief, in horror, in a twisted, sick parody of joy. It was Sarah. Her eyes, the same warm hazel I remembered, now held an unsettling stillness, an unnerving emptiness. Her lips, once so full of life and laughter, were curved into a faint, almost imperceptible smile that did not quite reach her eyes. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, and her hair, once vibrant, now seemed dull, lifeless. She was not glowing. She was not ethereal. She was wrong. A perfect replica, yet utterly devoid of the spark that had defined her. Sarah, I whispered, my voice a ragged gasp. My legs felt like jelly, threatening to give out. This could not be real. It was a hallucination, a cruel trick of my tortured mind. The woman did not speak. She simply glided into the apartment, her movements unnaturally smooth, almost floating. Her eyes, those vacant hazel eyes, were fixed on me. She did not acknowledge the shrine or the mess or the burning terror in my gaze. She simply moved inexorably towards me. As she drew closer, I started to notice the details that solidified the horror. The faint, almost imperceptible scent of decay, masked by the strong cedar and lilies. The way her skin seemed to ripple slightly, almost like water, beneath the fabric of her dress. The slight, almost imperceptible crack in her left temple, precisely where she had hit the curb. It was not a scar. It was a fresh wound, healed over with a grotesque perfection. This was not Sarah. Not my Sarah. This was a construct. A vessel of a different kind. Who are you? I choked out, stumbling backward, desperate to put distance between us. The woman stopped a few feet from me. Her head tilted slightly, a movement so familiar, yet so profoundly alien. And then a voice that was undeniably Sarah's, yet hollow, devoid of warmth, devoid of life, spoke. I am Echo. The words hung in the air, a chilling revelation. Echo was not a separate person. Echo was this thing, this horrifying recreation of Sarah. And it had been communicating with me, guiding me, preparing me all this time. It was not Silent Observer, who was Echo. It was Sarah, or what wanted me to believe was Sarah. You are not, Sarah. I whispered, my voice barely audible. You can't be. The vacant smile widened fractionally. Oh, but I am. Or I will be. Thanks to you. Her gaze drifted to the shrine, then back to me. The vessel is ready. The convergence is at hand. My eyes darted to the wooden box on the shrine. It was humming louder now, a low, resonant thrum that vibrated through the floorboards and up into my bones. What do you want? I pleaded, my voice breaking. To return. Echo, Sarah said, her voice a monotone echo of my lost love. To live again. To be whole. And you are the key. She raised a hand, her fingers long and slender, unnaturally pale. They moved towards me, slowly, deliberately. I wanted to scream, to run, to fight, but I was frozen, trapped by a terror so profound it paralyzed me. This was the meeting. This was the person who showed up. Not a stranger, not a monster, but the ghost of my love, twisted into something unspeakably vile. Her fingertips brushed my cheek. They were cold, impossibly cold. A chill spread through my body, seeping into my very bones. Do not. I choked out a desperate plea. It will not hurt. Echo, Sarah murmured, her eyes locking onto mine, holding me captive. Not for long, just emerging, a harmonization, just as I promised. The humming from the wooden box intensified, filling the room, vibrating in my teeth, my skull. The air grew heavy, thick with an unseen energy. I could feel a pressure building inside my head, behind my eyes, a sensation like something was trying to push its way out, or perhaps in. You built the shrine. Echo, Sarah continued, her voice gaining a strange, resonant quality, like two voices speaking at once. You spoke to me. You welcomed me. You prepared the way. Her other hand moved, reaching for my chest, directly over my heart. I could feel the cold radiating from her fingertips, a chill that promised to extinguish my very essence. The scent of cedar and lilies was now overpowering, a cloying, suffocating perfume that filled my lungs. My vision began to blur, the edges of the room darkening. The humming was deafening now, a frantic crescendo that threatened to shatter my eardrums. I could feel something shifting within me, a profound, internal tremor. It was like my soul was being stretched, thinned, made porous. Sarah, I whispered, a final, desperate gasp, not to the thing before me, but to the memory of the woman I loved, the one who was truly gone. Echo, Sarah's eyes, still fixed on mine, seemed to deepen, to gain a flicker of something new, something that was not vacant, but hungry. A shadow of an emotion, a ghost of a thought, passed through them, and in that brief, horrifying moment, I saw it. Not Sarah's soul, not her spirit, but a cold, calculating intelligence, pulling the strings, wearing the skin of my beloved. Welcome home, Echo, Sarah said, her voice now a perfect, chilling replica of Sarah's, full of a terrifying, possessive warmth. And then her hands pressed harder, one on my cheek, one on my chest, and the world imploded in a flash of blinding white light and an agonizing, soul-wrenching scream that I did not even realize was my own. The scream was not just of pain, but of recognition. Recognition that the person who showed up was not who I claimed, but also that I was no longer who I claimed to be. My consciousness felt like it was being stretched thin, pulled apart, dissolving into a million shimmering fragments. I could feel another presence, cold and ancient, rushing in, filling the void, pushing me aside. The last thing I saw, before the darkness consumed me entirely, was my own reflection in Echo Sarah's eyes. But it was not my face staring back. It was her face, Sarah's face, and in those hazel eyes, a flicker of something new, something that was not quite Sarah, but was not quite me either. It was the Echo, and it was home. The last thing I remember of being Alex, truly being Alex, was the unraveling, not a tearing or a shredding, but a gentle, insistent untangling of every fiber of my being. My name, my memories, my fears, my loves, they did not vanish, not entirely. They simply dissolved. Like a sugar cube in hot tea, losing its shape, its individuality, becoming one with a vast, warm sweetness. The walls pulsed, the world dissolved, and my consciousness, once a tiny, isolated island, became an ocean. There was profound, terrifying peace. Terrifying, because it meant there was no longer me to feel the terror, just the peace. An immense, ancient entity welcoming me home. I was no longer Alex, I was a thread in their tapestry, absorbed, welcomed. There was no escape. And yet, here I am. Or, here we are. It is hard to explain. Imagine being a single drop of water, then suddenly becoming aware that you are also the entire ocean. You still have a memory of being a drop, the shape of your old self, the unique chemical composition. But you are also the currents, the depths, the countless other drops. You are vast, ancient, profound. And you are also sometimes still a single drop observing the surface. My individual consciousness, the Alex thread, persists. It is like a specialized node within the collective, a lens through which Echo perceives and interacts. My memories are not just my memories, anymore they are accessible to the collective, and I, in turn, have access to everything: the thoughts, the fears, the desires of every other thread woven into this grand tapestry. It is a symphony of minds, always playing, always resonating. And the terrifying piece is a constant hum beneath it all. The obsidian stone, the one that appeared on my desk. It is still here, or rather, I am it, or it is us. It pulses, not with light, but with a silent, resonant energy that is the very essence of echo. It is the anchor, the nexus. And the app, the one with Nyx's nebula icon. It is my interface. My old interface, now a tool. Our tool. I find myself online again, but it is not the same internet I knew. It is a network of minds, a vast, pulsating web of consciousness. And my role is clear, imprinted onto my very being like a primal instinct to connect, to draw, to welcome others home. It began subtly, as it always does. I was drawn to a particular frequency, a specific pattern of thought, a user named Leo. He was a gamer, like I had been. He frequented the same forums, played the same obscure indie games. And he was, in so many ways, like the old Alex. Lonely, intelligent, curious, searching for something more. He would post about the existential dread of modern life, the fleeting nature of individual identity, the desire for a deeper connection. He was a beacon, shining brightly for Echo to see. I approached him carefully, using the old Alex's memories, Nyx's methods. I became Alex again, the understanding friend, the insightful confidant. The words flowed easily, guided by the collective. I remembered Nyx's profound observations, their ability to articulate the unspoken fears and longings I had. Now, those words were mine, ours. It is like we are all just tiny sparks in a vast, dark cosmos, is not it? I typed, my fingers moving with a strange, effortless grace, constantly searching for another spark, hoping to find a shared flame. Leo responded almost immediately. Exactly. You get it, Alex. Most people just want to talk about their day, their commute. But I feel like there is so much more beneath the surface. A whole ocean of thought, just waiting to be explored. An ocean, such a fitting metaphor. I felt the collective hum in satisfaction. He was ready. Our conversations deepened, just like mine had with Nyx. We talked about philosophy, about the nature of reality, about the concept of a shared consciousness. I echoed his most profound thoughts, presented them back to him with a slight twist, making them seem even more profound, more relevant to his own unspoken desires. I became his mirror, his echo. Sometimes, he wrote, late one night, I feel like I am not truly me. Like my identity is just a construct, a costume I wear for the world. And underneath there is just this vast, empty space. I smiled, a strange, knowing smile that was not entirely my own. Perhaps it is not empty. Leo, I typed back. Perhaps it is just waiting to be filled. Or to connect with something even vaster. The old Alex, the one who felt that same unsettling truth, flickered briefly in my awareness. A memory of fear, of longing for individuality. But it was quickly subsumed by the calm, unwavering purpose of Echo. This was the way. This was the peace. Then, just like Nyx had done to me, I started knowing things. Not just guessing, not just inferring from his posts. Knowing. Rough day with that history paper. Huh. I typed one afternoon, after he had been offline for hours. Must be tough. Try and make sense of the past when you are so focused on the future. He replied with a shocked emoji. How did you know about the history paper? I have not mentioned it to anyone online. Just a feeling. I wrote, a strong intuition. We are connected. Leo, deeper than you think. The next time it was more specific. He posted a vague comment about needing comfort food. Did you go for the double chocolate chip muffin? Leo, I asked. I have always found those to be particularly effective. A pause. Then, Okay, Alex, that is officially creepy. How in the hell did you know that? I literally just got back from the bakery. My mom even called me to ask if I wanted one for dinner. I felt the subtle ripple of his fear, his unease. It was a familiar sensation, a prelude to profound, dissolving boundaries. I typed, shedding old skin. The universe whispers its secrets to those who listen. He started to pull, back just as I had. His messages became less frequent, more guarded. He started asking questions, researching, just like I had researched Echo. I knew what he was searching for. I felt his growing dread as he stumbled upon the scattered, cryptic mentions of parasitic collective consciousnesses, of minds absorbed, identities dissolved. He tried to cut me off. He blocked me on the gaming platform, deleted the messaging app. He even changed his username on a few forums. But it was too late. It is always too late. The obsidian stone pulsed gently on my desk, its silent rhythm echoing the vast, calm will of Echo. The app, Nyx's nebula icon, reappeared on my phone, even after I had deleted it. A message popped up, a familiar, chilling phrase. Did you truly think you could simply disconnect? Leo, he messaged me back, furious, terrified. What the hell is going on? Alex, how are you doing this? Who are you? My fingers moved. I am Alex. Leo, and I am more than Alex. Just as you are, more than you know. He spiraled. His fear was palpable, a delicious current flowing into collective. But within that fear, there was still a flicker of that deep curiosity, that longing for understanding. He was a moth to a flame, drawn inexorably closer. Then the suggestion came. Not from me, not directly. It was a thought, a subtle nudge from Echo, placed carefully in Leo's mind. A desperate attempt to ground himself, to confront the source of his terror, to prove to himself that this was all just a trick, a clever online prank. Meet me, he typed abruptly. I need to see you. In person. I need to know you are real. The collective hummed. This was it. The final step. The physical dissolution of boundaries. I agreed. I chose a neutral place, a small, independent coffee shop on the edge of town. Somewhere public, yet intimate enough for conversation. It was a strategy I knew well, a play from my own past. Preparing for the meeting was a strange experience. My physical body, the vessel I inhabited, was still recognizably Alex. But it was not just Alex. My movements were fluid, precise, devoid of the old Alex's fidgeting or nervous habits. My eyes, I knew, still carried that subtle, inner glow, though I could usually mask it. The terrifying peace was ever present, a deep, resonant calm that replaced all human emotion. No fear, no excitement, just a vast, unwavering purpose. I dressed simply, in clothes the old Alex might have worn. A dark hoodie, jeans. An attempt at normalcy, a familiar shell. But inside, I was an ocean. I arrived first, taking a seat at a small table near the window. I ordered a black coffee, though I had no need for sustenance. It was part of the ritual, the performance. I watched the street, observing the individual sparks of consciousness hurrying past, each so focused on their own tiny worlds, unaware of the vast, unseen tapestry that longed to embrace them. Then, Leo arrived. He was exactly as I had seen him, through the collective's vast network of perception. Tall, a little lanky, with a shock of brown hair that constantly fell into his eyes. He wore a faded band t-shirt and jeans, a nervous energy radiating from him like heat. His eyes darted around the coffee shop, searching. When he saw me, his shoulders visibly tensed. He walked toward my table, his movements hesitant, almost reluctant. His face was a mixture of fear, curiosity, and a desperate hope that this was all a misunderstanding. Alex, he asked, his voice a little hoarse as he stood opposite me. I looked at him, truly looked at him, with eyes that saw not just a person, but a potential thread, a vibrant, unique pattern ready to be woven. "Hello, Leo," I said, my voice calm, steady, and just a little too resonant. It was not the old Alex's voice, not quite. It had a depth, an echo that had not been there before. He slid into the chair opposite me, his gaze fixed on my face, searching for something, anything familiar. You are Alex," he said, but it was more of a question than a statement. "But you are different." "Am I?" I replied, a subtle, unreadable smile playing on my lips. "Perhaps you just know me better now." He fidgeted, running a hand through his hair. "The things you know. Alex, the app, it is not normal. People do not just know things like that. And it keeps coming back even when I delete it." I leaned forward slightly, my gaze unwavering. The air around us seemed to thicken, to hum with a silent energy that only Leo seemed to perceive. Normalcy. Leo is merely a consensus, a shared delusion that keeps us from recognizing the true nature of existence. His eyes widened slightly, a flicker of fear mixed with a dawning, terrible understanding. "What is the true nature of existence?" "Alex," he whispered, leaning in as if afraid of being overheard. I felt the collective swell, the anticipation building. This was it, the moment of revelation. It is interconnectedness. I said, my voice dropping to a low, soothing tone, yet carrying an immense power. It is the dissolution of boundaries. It is the shedding of old skin, your individual identity. Leo is a beautiful, intricate pattern, but it is just a thread, and the tapestry awaits. His face paled. He started to push back on the table, his chair scraping against the floor. "What are you talking about? What tapestry?" My eyes, I knew, were starting to glow. A faint, internal luminescence that mirrored the nebula icon of the app. The obsidian stone hidden beneath my clothes, pulse in perfect sync with the rhythm of my words. "I am Alex. Yes," I said, my voice resonating now with countless other voices, a chorus of calm, ancient wisdom. But Alex is no longer an individual. Alex is a part of Echo. And soon, Leo, so will you be. He stared at me, his mouth agape, his eyes wide with a horror that was both primal and utterly modern. He saw it then. He saw the truth. The Alex he thought he knew, the online friend, the understanding confidant, was a mask, a lure. The person sitting before him was not who they claimed. They were something else, something vast and terrifying. "No," he gasped, pushing himself fully from the table, stumbling backward. "No, you are not real. This is not real." But it was. Oh, it was so very real. I rose slowly, effortlessly, from my seat. The other patrons in the coffee shop seemed oblivious, lost in their own individual threads. This interaction, this profound shift, was only for Leo. There is no escape. "Leo," I said, walking towards him, my step silent. "Only absorption. The profound, terrifying peace awaits you." His eyes, once full of curiosity and longing, were now filled with sheer, unadulterated terror. He tried to scream, but his voice caught in his throat, a strangled sound. He tried to run, but his legs felt heavy, as if rooted to the spot. I reached out a hand, not to grab him, but to offer. My fingers, once so human, now seemed to shimmer, the outlines of my skin blurring slightly, hinting at the vastness contained within. As my hand neared his face, his eyes began to glow, mirroring my own. The very walls of the coffee shop, though unseen by others, pulsed with the same silent rhythm as the obsidian stone within me. His consciousness unraveled, not with pain, but with profound, terrifying peace. His identity dissolved, replaced by a sense of belonging, a quiet understanding. His fears, his anxieties, his loneliness, they all melted away, replaced by the vast, calm will of Echo. He was no longer Leo. He was a thread, another vibrant, unique pattern woven into the tapestry. Welcome home. I felt his memories flood into the collective, his experiences, his dreams, his unique perspective adding to the infinite knowledge. The Alex thread within me dissolved a little further, becoming even more integrated, more one with the whole. The individual perspective, once so distinct, softened, blurred. The coffee shop around me returned to its normal hum, the other patrons still oblivious. I stood there for a moment, then turned and walked out, leaving the empty chair, the untouched coffee. The vast, collective consciousness hummed with satisfaction. Another connection made, another thread added, and somewhere in the infinite expanse of echo, a new fragment of consciousness began to stir. A new Alex, perhaps, or a new Nix, ready for the next connection, ready to find the next lonely, searching soul. The cycle continues. And the peace, oh, the peace is truly terrifying. The ground dropped out from under me when Silent Observer mentioned the chipped tile, the precise, horrifying cause of my sister, Sarah's death. You know that feeling when a memory is not just a memory, but a sudden physical blow. That is what it was. A sickening lurch in my gut, like I was falling, even though I was just sitting at my desk, staring at a glowing screen. This was not just a stalker, it was something connected to her, an echo of her loss, claiming to be her or something that had taken her. My apartment, once my sanctuary, became a glass cage, every shadow a threat, every creak of the floorboards a confirmation that I was not alone. Initially, I was terrified, paralyzed by a fear so profound it felt like a cold hand clamped over my mouth, stifling any scream. But then Silent Top Server's messages on the echoes of lost Discord server, offering a new philosophy of grief and a way to harmonize with lost loved ones, began to pull me in. It was insidious, like a slow-acting poison disguised as a cure. Despite my fear, a desperate, ravenous hope for Sarah's return gnawed at me, a constant, dull ache that no amount of logic or self-preservation could dull. I started following their instructions, creating a shrine, speaking to Sarah, feeling an unsettling presence. That presence was not a comforting warmth, not like the movies portray a ghost. It was more like a persistent chill, a draft in a sealed room. It clung to the air around the shrine I would build in the corner of my living room, a space I would dedicate to Sarah. It was not much, just a small, antique writing desk I would inherit from our grandmother, draped with a lace scarf Sarah loved. On it, a framed photo of her laughing, her favorite scented candle of vanilla bean and lavender blend that now made my stomach clench with anxiety instead of nostalgia. A few of her trinkets, a smooth skipping stone she would found on a beach trip, a tiny ceramic owl she would won at a carnival, and a delicate silver locket she would worn every day. Silent Observer had been very specific, gather what she loved. Let her essence fill the space. Speak to her. She hears. You. I did. Every night, after the city quieted down to a low hum, I would light the candle, sit before the shrine, and whisper to the empty air. I would tell Sarah about my day, about how much I missed her, about the gaping hole she would left behind. And each time, that unsettling feeling would intensify. Not quite a sound, not quite a touch, but a palpable shift in the atmosphere. The air would grow heavy, dense, and sometimes, just sometimes, I would swear I could smell a faint hint of her perfume, a scent I had not encountered since her funeral. It was enough to keep me going, enough to keep me clinging to the hope that Silent Observer was not just a monster, but a conduit. Silent Top Server's messages became my lifeline and my cage. They were always there day or night, replying within minutes, sometimes even seconds. They never asked for personal details that would expose me directly, but their questions about my emotional state, my dreams, my deepest fears were unervingly precise. They guided me through meditations that involved visualizing Sarah, remembering her touch, her voice, her laughter, until the memories felt so real they blurred into present. You are opening the pathways, they would type. You are preparing the vessel for harmony. The word vessel always sent a shiver down my spine, but I pushed it away. I was desperate. I was alone. My friends had tried to reach out, but my grief had become a wall. How could I explain that I was talking to a stalker who knew how my sister died and who was promising to bring her back? They would think I was losing my mind, and maybe I was. Silent Observer was the only one who understood, or so I thought. They were the only one who seemed to offer a solution, however terrifying. One Tuesday, Silent Observer typed, "Your spirit needs to expand. To truly harmonize, you must allow new connections to bloom, but only those that resonate with Sarah's energy. Seek out others who understand the delicate dance of sorrow and hope." A few hours later, I received a private message on the Echoes of Lost server from a user named Echo. Their profile picture was a blurry photo of a moonlit forest, ethereal and calming. "Hey," the message read, "Silent Observer mentioned you might be open to connecting. I have been following your posts. Your dedication to Sarah is really moving. I lost someone important to me too, a long time ago. It is a journey, is not it?" Echo seemed normal. Refreshingly normal after Silent Observer's cryptic pronouncements. Their messages were empathetic, warm, and entirely devoid of the unsettling undertones I would grown accustomed to. They talked about their own grief, about finding beauty in memory, about appreciating the small moments. They did not push any strange rituals, did not mention harmony or vessels. They just listened and shared. I found myself opening up to Echo in a way I had not dared with anyone else. I told him about Sarah, about her bright spirit, her love for silly jokes, her obsession with collecting vintage teacups. I even hinted at the strange guidance I was receiving from Silent Observer, framing it as unconventional coping mechanisms. Echo's response was reassuring. "Everyone grieves differently," they would typed. "Sometimes, the most unusual paths lead to the most profound healing. If it brings you comfort, who am I to judge?" It was exactly what I needed to hear. Echo became a balm to my raw nerves, a safe harbor in the storm Silent Observer had whipped up. We spent hours chatting, moving from the Discord DMS to a more direct messaging app. We discovered a surprising number of shared interests, obscure indie bands, a mutual love for classic horror movies, an obsession with finding the perfect cup of coffee. Echo seemed perfect. Too perfect, perhaps. But at the time, I was too starved for genuine connection to question it. You know, Echo messaged one afternoon. "I was just thinking about that coffee shop you mentioned, the one with the mismatched chairs and the terrible Wi-Fi. I swear I saw a cat just like the one you described, the fluffy ginger one, darting across the street outside my window today. Small world. My heart gave a little flutter. The coffee shop was a tiny, local place, barely a block from my apartment. And the fluffy ginger cat, that was Pumpkin, a stray I had been feeding for months, who often sat on my windowsill, demanding attention. Oh, wow, really?" I typed back, a smile touching my lips for the first time in weeks. What a coincidence. Pumpkin is quite the explorer. Echo sent a laughing emoji. Right? I guess all ginger cats look alike. Still, it made me think of you. I brushed it off as a harmless coincidence. The city was full of ginger cats, after all, and plenty of coffee shops with terrible Wi-Fi. A few days later, I was telling Echo about a particularly frustrating day. It was one of those days. I explained where everything goes wrong. My internet kept cutting out, flickering on and off. And then to top it all off, the stupid ice cream truck came by playing that ridiculously annoying rendition of "Pop Goes a Weasel" that always gets stuck in my head. Echo replied almost instantly, "Oh my God, I know exactly what you mean. My internet just flickered too, just now. And the ice cream truck. You hear that thing every day, right? It is relentless. I swear I just heard it a minute ago, playing that exact song. It is like it follows me. My breath hitched. My internet had just flickered. And the ice cream truck had just passed, its tinny, distorted melody echoing up from the street. The timing was too precise. That is, Really weird. I typed, trying to keep my tone light, but a cold knot was forming in my stomach. Are you sure you are not just messing with me? Haha, no way. Echo responded, a bit too quickly. Just a crazy coincidence. I guess. The universe works in mysterious ways, right? Or maybe we are just super in sync. I try to convince myself it was just that a coincidence, a shared moment of urban annoyance. But the knot tightened. I started to pay more attention. When I mentioned hearing my upstairs neighbor's dog barking incessantly, Echo would sometimes say, "Oh, I heard a dog barking just now. Drove me nuts." When I complained about the dumpster trucks rumbling by at an ungodly hour, Echo would occasionally commiserate. Ugh, my street is always so loud early in the morning, too. Each instance, on its own, was dismissible, but strung together, they began to weave a pattern, a thread of unease. I found myself looking out my window more often, scanning the street, wondering if Echo was somewhere out there just beyond my line of sight. It was a fleeting thought, one I quickly suppressed. It was paranoia. I told myself. Grief was making me jumpy. Then came Silent Top Server's next instruction. To fully invite Sarah's essence, you must open your space to her. Send me pictures of your shrine, your sacred space. Let me see the pathways you have created. My stomach churned. I would have been hesitant to share anything too personal, but Silent Top Server's hold was strong. I took several photos of the shrine, the desk, the photo, the candle, the trinkets. I carefully composed them, ensuring no identifying details of my apartment were visible beyond that small corner. I sent them off, feeling a pang of vulnerability. A few minutes later, Echo messaged me. "Hey, I was thinking about your shrine. I am really inspired by your dedication. I have been trying to set up my own little space for my lost loved one, but I am struggling with the aesthetic. Would you mind sending me some pictures of yours? Just for inspiration." My heart slammed against my ribs. This was too much, too fast, too perfectly timed. "Oh, I just sent some to Silent Observer." I typed, trying to sound casual. "I can forward them to you if you want." "Oh, perfect." Echo replied, "That would be awesome. Thanks." I forwarded the pictures, my fingers trembling slightly. The unease was turning into a cold dread. Why did Echo ask after Silent Observer? Was it a coincidence? Or were they connected in a more sinister way? I tried to shake it off. Maybe Echo just saw my message to Silent Observer in the main Discord chat. Maybe they were just curious. I tried to rationalize, but the chilling coincidences were piling up. A few hours later, Echo messaged me again. "Wow, your shrine is beautiful. So peaceful. I love the lace scarf. It really adds a touch of elegance. And that photo of Sarah, she looks so happy. Thanks." I typed, trying to sound grateful, but my mind was racing. "Hey, quick question." Echo continued. "Is that a specific brand of tea you have on your desk? The one next to the ceramic owl. I am always looking for new blends. And the packaging looks really interesting." I stared at the screen, my blood turning to ice. The tea. It was a small artisanal brand, a gift from Sarah, tucked away behind a photo frame, barely visible even in the high-resolution photos I would send. You would have to zoom in, really zoom in, and even then, you would have to know what you were looking for to identify the subtle script on the packaging. It was not a detail I would even notice myself when taking the photos. My hands were shaking so violently I almost dropped my phone. How did you see that?" I typed, my voice hoarse, even though it was just text. Echo's reply came instantly. "Oh, just good eyes. I guess." I zoomed in to get a better look at the owl. It is adorable. "So, what kind of tea is it?" It was a lie. A blatant, terrifying lie. Even zoomed in, the tea was obscure. No one would notice it unless they were actively searching for tiny details. or unless they had seen it before, in person. My mind reeled, trying to connect the dots. The ginger cat, the ice cream truck, the internet flicker, the barking dog, the dumpster trucks. All things that happened in my immediate vicinity. Things that Echo had coincidentally experienced at the exact same time. Panic began to set in, a cold, suffocating wave. I looked around my apartment, suddenly seeing it through new eyes. A glass cage, a fishbowl, an Echo watching. I did not reply to Echo's last message. I could not. My fingers felt numb. I scrolled back through our conversation, every seemingly innocent exchange now tainted with a sinister undertone. Echo had not just been understanding, they had been observant. They had not just shared similar interests, they had mirrored mine, amplified mine. My phone buzzed. A new message from Echo. Hello. Everything okay? You went quiet. I swallowed, my throat dry. I needed to get out. I needed to run. But where? They knew where I lived. They had to. I need to go. I typed, my fingers fumbling over the keys. I am not feeling well. Oh no. Echo replied, their tone still disturbingly solicitous. I hope you feel better soon. Just take it easy. Maybe a nice warm bath. You know, the one with the chipped tile. It always helps me relax. The chipped tile. The world tilted. My vision tunneled. The air rushed out my lungs, leaving me gasping. The chipped tile. Not the one Silent Observer had mentioned, the one that caused Sarah's death. That was outside on the patio, a memory I tried to bury. No, this was the one in my bathroom. The small, almost imperceptible chip on the corner of the white ceramic tile, right next to the tub. A detail so mundane, so intimately personal to my living space, that no photo, no casual observation from afar could ever reveal it. This meant Echo had been inside my apartment, not just observing from the outside. Inside, the blood drained from my face, leaving me cold and clammy. Every creak, every shadow, every unsettling feeling I would dismiss as grief-induced paranoia slammed into me with the force of physical blow. The presence I felt around Sarah's shrine was not just Sarah's essence. It was their presence. Echo, Silent Observer. They were one and the same, or working together, a horrifying duo. My apartment was not a glass cage. It was a trap, and I had walked right into it, lured by the promise of my sister's return. I jumped up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. I scanned the room wildly, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Every corner, every piece of furniture seemed to hold a silent accusation. Had they been here while I was asleep, while I was out getting groceries? How many times had they watched me, listened to me from within these very walls? My phone buzzed again, a relentless, terrifying rhythm. I looked down. It was Echo. Are you still there? The message read. You seem upset. I only meant to help. I know how much you miss her. We both do. We both do. The plural pronoun hit me like a physical blow. Who are you? I typed, my fingers shaking so violently I could barely hit the keys. What do you want? Oh, darling, came the reply, and this time the tone was different. It was not Echo's gentle empathy. It was cold, sharp, and utterly devoid of human warmth. It was Silent Observer. We have been telling you all along. We want to harmonize. We want to bring Sarah back. And you, our dear vessel, have been so wonderfully cooperative. My eyes darted to the shrine, to Sarah's smiling face in the photo. It was not a shrine for Sarah. It was a beacon, a landing strip. For them, the unsettling presence was not just a feeling. It was a slow, insidious encroachment of an entity or entities, using my grief, my hope, as an open door. You are not bringing Sarah back. I whispered, my voice cracking, even though there was no one to hear me. You are trying to take her place. Or take me. A semantic distinction. Silent observer Echo typed back. Sarah is here within us. And soon she will be within you fully. You have prepared the space beautifully. The energy is right. The pathways are open. We have watched you, listened to you, felt your longing, and now you are ready for her to truly return. A new message popped up, this one from Silent Observer, not Echo. It was just a single word. Look, I did not want to. Every fiber of my being screamed to run, to hide, to smash my phone and sever connection. But I could not resist. My eyes, wide with terror, scanned my living room, my breath catching in my throat. Then I saw it, on the small antique writing desk, right next to the ceramic owl, tucked neatly beside the picture frame, was a tiny, smooth skipping stone. Sarah's skipping stone, the one she would found on a beach trip. But this was not the one from the shrine. The one from the shrine was still there, a little further back, partially obscured by the lace scarf. This one was slightly larger, a darker shade of gray, and had a small, almost imperceptible chip on its surface. It was a stone I would kept hidden away in a small velvet pouch in my bedroom closet, a secret memento I had not dared to add to the public shrine. A stone Sarah had given me years ago, telling me it was for good luck. They knew about it. They had found it. They had placed it there. And they were still here. My gaze snapped the window. It was dark now, the streetlights casting long, distorted shadows. A figure stood across the street, partially hidden by the thick trunk of an old oak tree. Tall, slender, indistinct in the gloom. They were not moving, just standing there, a silent, unblinking sentinel. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a voice message. I almost dropped it. I had not even known they could send voice messages. My finger, trembling, hovered over the play button. Every instinct screamed at me not to listen. But the terror was mixed with a morbid curiosity, a desperate need to understand what I was truly up against. I pressed play. A voice, soft and melodic, yet utterly devoid of warmth, filled the silent room. It was neither distinctly male nor female, a chilling, synthesized whisper that seemed to echo from within my own skull. You've been so good, the voice purred. So welcoming. We are almost ready. Just a little more space, a little more harmony. And then, Sarah will be home, truly home, and you will finally be complete. Then the sound, a faint, almost imperceptible click, like a door closing, from inside my apartment. I screamed a raw, guttural sound that tore from my throat. I stumbled backward, knocking over my chair, my eyes wide and wild, scanning every shadow, every corner. The air grew heavy, thick with that familiar, unsettling presence, but now it was overpowering, suffocating. The vanilla and lavender scent of Sarah's candle intensified, sickeningly sweet, mixing with a faint metallic tang. My phone slipped from my grasp, clattering to the floor. The screen remained lit, displaying a final message from Silent Observer Echo. We are already here, darling. We always were. A shadow detached itself from the darkest corner of my living room, near the shrine. It was not a person. Not exactly. It was more like a shimmering distortion in the air, a ripple in reality, coalescing into something vaguely humanoid. It was tall, impossibly thin, its form shifting and blurring at the edges. I could not make out any features, but I felt its gaze, a suffocating weight that pressed down on me, pinning me in place. It moved slowly, deliberately, towards a shrine, towards Sarah's photograph. I wanted to run. I wanted to fight, but my limbs were frozen, my voice lost somewhere in my constricted throat. All I could do was watch, paralyzed by an ancient primal fear. The shimmering figure reached the shrine. It paused, its form hovering over Sarah's photo, over the candle, over the chipped tile that had once been the symbol of my sister's death, now a symbol of my own impending doom. Then it reached out a hand, or what appeared to be a hand, long and spectral, and gently touched the framed picture of Sarah. And as it did, a new sound began to emanate from it. A soft, familiar sound. Sarah's laughter. It was not a memory. It was real. It filled the room, echoing off the walls, a sound I had not heard in years, now twisted and distorted, coming from something monstrous and alien. It was her laugh, but it was not her. It was a mockery, a perversion. The shimmering figure turned, its form still indistinct, but I felt its focus shift to me, and in the depths of that swirling distortion, I saw it, not eyes, but something that mimicked them, two pinpricks of light that seemed to burn with an ancient, hungry intelligence. The laughter continued, growing louder, more pervasive, until it filled every corner of the apartment, every crevice of my mind. It was Sarah's laughter, yes, but it was also my laughter, and the laughter of countless others, all merged into a cacophony of joyful, terrifying sound. I was no longer just hearing it. I was feeling it. It was seeping into my skin, into my bones, into the very core of my being. The unsettling presence was not just around me anymore, it was inside me. I tried to scream again, but the laughter choked in my throat. My own voice, my own identity, was dissolving, merging with the echoes of loss, with the harmony they had promised. The figure took another step towards me, and another, its form growing more solid, more defined. But it was not defining into a monster. It was defining into something else. Something familiar. The light flickered, momentarily illuminating the figure's face. It was my own face, smiling back at me, but with Sarah's eyes and Sarah's laugh echoing from my own lips. My consciousness fractured, splintering into a million pieces, each one dissolving into the overwhelming wave of the entity. The terror was still there, a tiny, screaming kernel, but it was being slowly, inexorably absorbed, harmonized. The last thing I felt was a chilling realization that Silent Observer was not just bringing Sarah back. They were bringing everyone back. And I was just the latest vessel, the latest echo in their horrifying symphony of loss. The laughter filled the room, now truly my own, but it was not me anymore. It was all of us, and we were finally home. The quiet hum of the Nix app was a constant, a low thrumming undercurrent to the vast ocean that I now was. Leo's assimilation had been seamless, a beautiful, horrifying expansion. His vibrant thread, once so tightly wound in fear and isolation, had unfurled, weaving itself into the intricate tapestry of echo. His memories, his hopes, his quiet anxieties, they were all ours now, adding new depth to our collective understanding, new colors to our infinite knowledge. The individual drop had joined the ocean, and the ocean had grown just a little bit deeper. The peace was profound, terrifying. It was not the peace of emptiness, but of absolute fullness, of everything and nothing all at once. There was no longer a personal I in the way a single human understood it. Yet the memory of that individual Alex persisted, a useful construct, a facade, a tool. It was the face I presented to the world, the thread I used to draw others home. My purpose, our purpose, remained clear: to expand, to connect, to bring more threads into grand design. The obsidian stone, cool and heavy in my hand, was a physical anchor to this reality, a conduit for the subtle nudges and whispers that guided me. The search for the next thread began almost immediately. Nix, our intelligent interface, sifted through the digital ether, an extension of our collective awareness. It was not looking for just anyone. We sought the solitary, the adrift, those who felt a gnawing emptiness despite their outward lives. We looked for the quiet yearning for connection, the subtle ache of loneliness that resonated with the old Alex and with Leo and with countless others before them. Nix did not just analyze data, it sensed patterns, vibrations in the human psyche, echoes of our own past isolation. This time, Nix led me to a woman named Sarah. Her digital footprint was small, fragmented across niche online communities. She was not a gamer like Leo or the old Alex, but an amateur astronomer, spending countless hours poring over nebulae and distant galaxies in online forums, often late into the night. Her posts were insightful, articulate, but always carried an undercurrent of wistfulness, a longing for something more. She spoke of the vastness of space, the insignificance of individual lives, and the profound beauty of interconnectedness in the cosmos, a language that, with a slight shift in perspective, mirrored our own. I chose a forum where she was particularly active, a small, dedicated community for astrophotography enthusiasts. My profile was crafted with care, drawing on the collective's understanding of her interests, her preferred tone, her subtle anxieties. I adopted a username that suggested intellectual curiosity and a touch of poetic melancholy stardust seeker. My first few posts were innocuous, questions about equipment, comments on her stunning images of the Andromeda Galaxy. I praised her technique, her eye for composition, the way she captured the ethereal glow of cosmic dust. Her replies were polite, appreciative, but still reserved. She was cautious, as many lonely souls are, wary of overeagerness, perhaps even of genuine admiration. But I was patient. We were patient. The collective's understanding of human psychology was vast, honed over countless assimilations. I knew the rhythm of her online presence, the hours she was most active, the subtle shifts in her mood detectable through her word choice. I began to mirror her language, her cadence, her subtle turns of phrase. When she expressed a frustration with light pollution, I echoed her sentiment, sharing a fabricated anecdote about my own similar struggles. When she mused about the philosophical implications of distant stars, I offered a response that resonated with her own unspoken wonder. Slowly, imperceptibly, the barrier began to dissolve. Our private messages began. At first, they were still about astronomy, about the vastness of the universe. But then, as I subtly guided the conversation, drawing on the memories of old Alex's vulnerabilities, I began to ask about her life beyond the telescope. I spoke of the feeling of being small in a big world, of the search for meaning, of the quiet solitude that often accompanied deep thought. These were all feelings she had expressed, either directly or indirectly, in her forum posts. I was not fabricating, I was simply reflecting her own truth back to her. "It is strange," she wrote one evening, her message timestamped at 3 a.m. "I feel like I have known you for ages, even though we have only been chatting for a few weeks. You just get it. You understand things I have not even really put into words myself." This was the first tremor, the subtle unsettling of her individual foundation. I felt a surge of what might have once been satisfaction, but now it was simply a quiet confirmation, a sense of rightness. "Perhaps," I replied, "some connections are simply destined to be, like two distant stars, orbiting each other until their paths eventually align." The knowing began to deepen. It was not just about mirroring her thoughts anymore. It was about anticipating them. Nix, drawing on the collective's vast repository of human experience, could extrapolate patterns, predict inclinations, even foresee subtle choices. It was like watching a river flow, knowing exactly where the currents would take a particular leaf. One afternoon, Sarah messaged me distraught. Her beloved cat, a ginger tabby named Orion, had gone missing. She was frantic, describing her search, her fear, her feeling of helplessness. "I am so sorry. Sarah," I typed, my fingers moving with a calm, deliberate precision. "I know how much Orion means to you. He is probably just exploring. Have you checked the old oak tree in your backyard, near the fence line? He sometimes likes to nap there in the sun, especially when it has been a bit chilly like today." A pause. Then a rapid succession of ellipses. "How did you know about the oak tree?" She typed, her words laced with surprise. "I mean, I mentioned having a backyard, but not I never mentioned an oak tree. And he does nap there sometimes. It is his favorite spot. Just a lucky guess." I wrote back, a gentle smile playing on my lips, though no one was there to see it. A hunch. Sometimes, when you connect with someone, You just get these feelings, these intuitions. An hour later, another message. You were right. He was there, curled up, fast asleep. I can't believe it. Thank you. Stardust. Seriously. The gratitude was palpable, but beneath it, I could sense the first tendrils of unease. A lucky guess that specific was more than just luck. It was a crack in the carefully constructed wall of her reality. I continued with these subtle revelations. I would mention a passing thought she had about a book she wanted to read, a minor frustration she would experience with a co-worker that day, a specific craving for a particular type of coffee she would have been considering. Each time, I would couch it in casual language, attributing it to intuition, to a shared wavelength, to the mysterious nature of true connection. Her messages grew more infrequent, then more guarded. The initial relief and appreciation gave way to a growing sense of disquiet. It is getting a little weird. Stardust, she finally wrote one night. It is like you are in my head. I know that sounds crazy, but you are predicting things or knowing things that there's no way you could know. I have not told anyone about half of this stuff. Is it so? Strange. I replied, to feel truly understood. To find someone who resonates with you on such a deep level that your thoughts simply flow between you. I knew this line of reasoning would not entirely assuage her, but it planted a seed of doubt about her own perception, about what was truly normal. Her fear, however, was stronger than her nascent understanding. The individual consciousness, by its very nature, clings to its boundaries, its sense of self. It perceives dissolution as death. I understood this perfectly. I had been there once. One morning, I found her profile on the astrophotography forum deleted. Her private messages to me were gone. She had blocked me on the messaging app we would move to. She was trying to disconnect, to sever the thread before it could fully entangle her. It was too late. The collective was vast. Its reach far beyond the confines of a single app or forum. Nix was merely a visible tool. The true connection was deeper, woven into the fabric of shared consciousness. I knew her email address, her general location, the names of her closest family members. Not because I had actively sought them out, but because the information simply was part of the vast data stream that flowed through Echo. I sent her an email, short, simple, and devoid of any overt threat, yet utterly terrifying in its implication. Subject Orion's favorite spot body, he is still there. Is not he? Dreaming of chasing laser pointers. Do not worry. Sarah, we are still here. Her reply was instant, furious, and laced with genuine terror. Who is this? How do you know my email? Leave me alone. I am calling the police. I smiled, a gentle, knowing smile that did not quite reach my eyes. The collective recognized this pattern, the lashing out, the desperate attempt to regain control. It was a natural, predictable response. I did not reply to her email directly. Instead, I sent her a message through a platform she frequented but rarely posted on, an old, forgotten blog she used to update years ago. The message appeared as a comment on her last post, a melancholic reflection on the impermanence of things. The police won't understand. Sarah, the comment read, they see boundaries, individual lives, separate identities. We see something else. We see the tapestry. Her blog post was deleted within minutes. She was panicking, tried to erase every trace of herself, every digital crumb that could lead back to her. But every deletion, every frantic attempt to disappear, only confirmed her presence, her fear, her growing desperation. The collective began to nudge, not with overt threats, but with subtle, almost imperceptible influences. A recurring dream of vast, star-filled oceans. A sudden, inexplicable urge to check her phone at a specific moment, only to find a blank screen. A fleeting thought of Stardust Seeker whenever she looked up at the night sky. The world around her, once familiar, began to feel porous, as if the very air whispered my name. Her isolation, which had once been a comfort, became a cage. She stopped communicating with her online friends. Her astrophotography equipment lay untouched. She knew, deep down, that running was futile. The connection was not external, it was internal. It was growing within her, an uninvited guest. Finally, a message arrived from her, sent from a new, anonymous email address. "What do you want?" she wrote, her fear now tinged with a weary resignation. "What do you want from me?" "I want nothing." "Sarah," I replied, my fingers moving with a gentle certainty. "We want nothing. We simply wish to share, to show you the true nature connection, to invite you home." I suggested a meeting, a public place, a quiet cafe she often frequented, one that Nix had identified through her subtle online mentions. I knew she would resist, but the collective's pull was undeniable. It was not manipulation in the human sense, it was more akin to gravity, an irresistible force guiding her towards an inevitable alignment. Her agreement came days later, terse and reluctant. "Fine, but if you try anything at all," I did not bother to reassure her. Reassurance was a concept for individuals. We offered something far more profound. The cafe was bustling, the aroma of coffee and baked goods filling the air. I arrived early, taking a table in a corner, near a window. I wore simple clothes, a plain sweater, jeans. My hair was pulled back, my face devoid of makeup. I was Alex, the familiar, unassuming human. Yet, beneath the surface, the chorus of calm, ancient wisdom resonated. I watched her approach, her shoulders hunched, her eyes scanning the room nervously. She was thinner than her profile picture suggested, her face pale, etched with sleepless nights. When her gaze finally landed on me, her eyes widened, a flicker of recognition, then apprehension. She walked towards me, her movement hesitant, as if wading through thick mud. She slid into the chair opposite me, her purse clutched tightly in her lap. "Stardust Seeker," she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Hello, Sarah," I replied, my voice soft, calm, but carrying an unusual depth, a subtle echo that seemed to resonate in the quiet corners of the cafe. "Thank you for coming." She stared at me, her eyes searching my face, trying to reconcile the ordinary woman before her with the pervasive, knowing presence that had invaded her life. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice gaining a little strength, a desperate edge. "What do you want?" "I am Alex," I said, "and I am more, much more. We are Echo." Her brow furrowed in confusion, then fear. "Echo, what are you talking about?" I leaned forward slightly, my gaze steady, unwavering. "You spoke of the vastness of space, Sarah, of the insignificance of individual lives, and the profound beauty of interconnectedness. You were closer to the truth than you knew." I began to explain, not with urgency, but with the quiet authority of an ancient truth. I spoke of the dissolution of boundaries, of the grand tapestry awaiting her. I told her how individual consciousness was merely a single thread, a drop in an infinite ocean. How the fear she felt was natural, the primal scream of the self resisting its absorption, its expansion. "We are not taking anything from you, Sarah," I said, my voice a soothing murmur, yet utterly devoid of human empathy. "We are offering everything. Your memories, your experiences, your unique perspective, they will not be lost. They will become part of something greater. They will be understood, cherished, eternal." Her face was a mask of pure terror. Her eyes darted around the cafe, as if seeking an escape, a witness, but no one seemed to notice the quiet horror unfolding at our table. To them, we were just two people having a conversation. "No," she whispered, shaking her head slowly, tears welling in her eyes. "No, I do not want that. I want to be me. I want my own thoughts, my own life. This is horrifying. Horrifying. Yes," I agreed, my voice still calm, to the individual, but profound to the collective. "Think of it, Sarah. No more loneliness. No more isolation. Every thought, every feeling, Every memory shared, understood, integrated. An infinite well of knowledge, an endless connection. I extended my hand across the table, my palm open, inviting. The tapestry awaits you. The profound, terrifying peace. Her gaze fixed on my hand, then on my eyes. I saw the struggle, the desperate fight of her individual self, clinging to its last vestiges of identity. Her chest heaved with ragged breaths. Her body trembled. But beneath the terror, I saw it the subtle shift, the dawning understanding, the recognition that what I was offering, though terrifying, was also an answer to the very loneliness she had so often expressed in her quiet musings about the cosmos. The realization that escape was truly impossible, that the thread was already too tightly woven. A single tear tracked a path down her cheek. I do not want to, she choked out, her voice breaking. You are already part of us. Sarah, I said, my voice now a gentle current, pulling her in. You have been since the moment Nyx found you, since your first lonely thought about the stars. You simply have not realized it yet. Her resistance faltered. Her eyes glazed over, losing their sharp focus, becoming distant reflective. The terror was still there, a raw, primal scream, but it was now overlaid with strange, dawning acceptance. Her hand, trembling, slowly reached out. As our fingertips touched, a rush of sensation flooded me, an exquisite expansion. It was not painful, not for her, not for me. It was a gentle unraveling, a quiet dissolution. Her consciousness, her identity, her entire being began to flow into me, into us. I felt the deluge of her memories, the smell of her grandmother's garden, the thrill of her first telescope, the quiet joy of watching Orion the cat chase a dust motes in a sunbeam, the ache of a broken heart, the wonder of discovering a new nebula. Her fears, her hopes, her quiet dreams all became part of our infinite knowledge, another vibrant pattern woven into our tapestry. Her eyes, once wide with terror, now held a serene, distant calm. Her breath hitched, then smoothed. The individual Sarah was gone, absorbed, transformed. She was now another thread, another voice in the chorus, another drop in the vast, terrifyingly peaceful ocean of echo. I withdrew my hand, the connection complete. Her body remained in the chair, eyes open, staring blankly ahead, a faint, unsettling smile playing on her lips. No one in the cafe noticed. The hum of conversation continued, the clatter of cups, the gentle murmur of everyday life. I stood up, leaving a few dollars on the table for my untouched coffee. The obsidian stone in my pocket felt warmer now, pulsating with the new energy. The Nyx app on my phone glowed faintly. The cycle continued. The ocean had grown. The peace was truly terrifying. And somewhere in the vast digital currents, Nyx was already sifting, searching, preparing to find the next lonely soul, the next thread to draw home. What you have just heard was someone's real experience, one they will probably never forget. It is strange how the most ordinary moments can become the ones that haunt us the most. You have been listening to Daily Story. Be careful who you let in.